The lingering passion from the racetrack was still in the air. In the club's buffet restaurant, Tony Tang nudged Leo Chun with his elbow, winking at a few alluring figures surrounded by other rich kids. I can't get it. Want me to set you up with a couple? Leo Chun smiled and shook his head. He knew that the $4.6 million Ferrari was his silent pass, allowing him to sit here and calmly refuse such readily available temptations. He was more concerned now with how to store this steel beast. Tony advised against driving it back to the company's underground garage. The supercar's chassis was too low, and even at its highest setting, it risked being scraped. No problem, just have it towed back for me for now. Leo Chin's tone was as casual as arranging for a package delivery. Once I get my license, have it brought back out. I'll buy a house with a garage for it then. That one sentence made the few rich kids who had been eavesdropping nearby retract their probing glances. Casually buying a house just to park a supercar. That was the kind of talk fitting for someone in their circle. Meanwhile, in a girls' dorm at Jining University's foreign language department, a small storm was brewing. As Summer Xia fretted over her awkward walking posture, a delivery call came from the computer store. With her roommate's help, an office computer, in a case much larger than usual, was brought in. Summer, don't you already have a computer? Why buy another one? And this doesn't look like it can run games, her roommate Julie Shu said, curiously examining the plain black metal box. A shy blush crept up Summer Xia's cheeks. It was a gift. Amid her roommate's teasing guesses that it must be her father, Summer Xia murmured with a love-struck expression, "It's from someone I belong to, but who doesn't belong to me. He's a boy who shines." When the computer booted up, its lightning-fast speed stunned the girls. Dubiously, they copied a game file over and clicked run. The game launched instantly, running with unbelievable smoothness. She tried cranking the graphics and all special effects to their maximum settings, but the frame rate remained rock solid, even several times smoother than her own $5,000 or $6,000 computer. When two game clients ran simultaneously with the same silky smoothness, the entire dorm fell silent. A stunned Summer Xia opened the system configuration page. Staring at the long list of absurdly high-end hardware models, some core components even duplicated, she instantly understood. The boy who shined had, in the clumsiest and most domineering way, given her the surprise of a lifetime. But at that moment, the boy who shined himself was looking rather grim. He had just returned to his dorm to find his roommate Jerry and Mandy Ma making out on the sofa without a care in the world. He tactfully retreated and took a taxi straight to Scholar's Grace Residences. Opening Yolanda Yu's apartment door, he was hit by the strong smell of alcohol. The dining room was a mess of overturned bottles, and three girls were all passed out drunk. Leo Chin sighed. With great effort, he managed to get Yolanda and her two friends settled. In the dead of night, all was quiet. Leo Chin sat on the living room sofa, having just lit a cigarette. The city's neon lights outside the window cast deep shadows on his profile. Just then, a dark figure falling rapidly outside the window caught his eye. It was followed by a dull thud and the sharp sound of a rope pulling taut. The figure jerked to a stop midair and began to struggle violently. Leo Chin's pupils contracted, and he rushed to the window. A man, with ropes tied around his neck and waist, was hanging in the air more than 10 stories up like a grotesque pendulum. His face had turned a purplish blue, his eyes rolled back, and a hoarse, wheezing sound escaped his throat. He had to save him. Without a second thought, Leo Chun grabbed the rope on the windowsill and roared with all his might. "Grab the security bars." The dying man seemed to regain a sliver of consciousness and clung desperately to the metal bars. Leo Chun tore down the heavy curtains, twisted them into a sturdy rope, and tossed it down. 7 or 8 minutes later, with a final, near-exhausted roar from Leo Chun, the entertainment reporter, Andian, was finally dragged from the brink of death into the room. It turned out he had been trying to get a scoop on a celebrity in the opposite building, but in his focus, he got tangled in his own safety rope, slipped, and ended up in a real-life version of self-hanging. He recounted the hardships and dangers of his job, hiding at the bottom of a pool disguised as a tile for 4 hours, camping in a manhole for 7 days, nearly being hauled away by a garbage truck. The money he earned wasn't even enough to cover his equipment and medical bills. Leo Chun listened quietly, but a storm was raging in his mind. He realized that on his path forward, he would inevitably encounter all sorts of obstacles, and people like Andian, with their networks of informants, were exactly the eyes and ears he needed. A grand plan quickly took shape in his mind. "Andy," Leo Chun stood up, clapping him on the shoulder. "Come on, let's go get a drink. To calm your nerves." Andy and was already waiting at the entrance. He hadn't followed him, but had used his own intelligence network to pinpoint Leo's business base overnight. Leo Chun made a decision on the spot. A monthly salary of $20,000, with operational funds to be covered separately, officially bringing this ghost in the darkness under his command. At 9:30 a.m., the stock market opened. Longzhong Coal, as expected, was locked at its daily limit up. At Leo Chin's command, a massive sell order of nearly 500,000 hands flooded the market, instantly devoured by fervent retail investors and institutions. In less than an hour, the entire position was cleared. On the account screen, a string of cold, yet scorching, numbers declared Liu Chen's victory, a profit of 120.9 million. He had officially entered the nine-figure club. However, before the celebratory champagne could be opened, a brand new hidden message refreshed in his vision. From June 15th to June 26th, Jinning Pharmaceutical will rise by a total of 100%. And at this very moment, Jinning Pharmaceutical was in the midst of a scandal over its new wonder drug's suspected severe complications, causing its stock to hit consecutive daily limits down, with the market in an uproar. Liu Chen didn't hesitate for a moment. He extinguished his celebratory cigarette, his voice calm and decisive. Sophia, tell Ethan and Alex that all funds are to be invested in Jinning Pharmaceutical. Meanwhile, in the top-floor office of Jinning Pharmaceutical's headquarters, the atmosphere was deadly serious. The president, ICN, the same woman who had terrified all the rich kids on the racetrack, now swept her beautiful, fierce eyes over the trembling executives. The results are in. The lab director burst in, stumbling. Our drug is fine. We were framed. A cold smile touched ICN's lips. A crisis was also an opportunity. Everyone, hand over your phones. With a swift high kick, she shattered the corner of the solid mahogany desk. From now on, no one is to leave this office or have any contact with the outside world. Zhang Yuan, have your people guard the door. As the terrified executives looked on, she walked into another office and dialed her trusted subordinate. Gather all funds and buy Jinning Pharmaceutical stock like crazy. She was going to seize absolute control of the company amidst this storm. Just then, her half-sister, Elaine Yin, stormed in with her entourage, caused a scene at the door, and then left in a huff. Immediately, a massive sell order of several 100,000 hands appeared on the market. Xian looked at the huge sell order on the screen and sneered. Useless fool. Feeling the sting already? Go ahead, sell. The more, the better. In the trading room, Ethan Wang and Alex Xiao also felt immense pressure from the waterfall of sell orders. But Liu Chen shouted excitedly, buy. Quick, take it all. He not only committed all the funds in the company account, but also pooled his personal funds and margin, raising another 239 million with 10 times leverage, and threw it all in. All in, it was a gamble of over 1.2 billion in total. When the last buy order was executed, Liu Chen's capital account was completely empty. He leaned back in his chair, watching the sell orders that were still pouring out, and for the first time, felt the insignificance of money. He had exhausted all his ammunition and could only be a spectator, waiting for fate's verdict. A dead silence fell over the trading room. When the last penny of ammunition was spent, Liu Chen became a mere spectator. On the screen, Jinning Pharmaceutical's limit-down board still displayed an astronomical number of sell orders, like a bottomless black hole ready to devour everyone's confidence. Beads of sweat formed on Ethan Wang and Alex Zhao's foreheads. They looked at Liu Chen's calm profile, their hearts filled with a mix of awe and anxiety. Could the boss really create another miracle this time? Liu Chen stood up, looked around at the tense faces, and suddenly smiled. All employees, take a 10-day vacation. Everyone was stunned, thinking they had misheard. Seeing their bewildered expressions, Liu Chen realized he might have been a bit too excited and corrected himself. All right, let's do rotating shifts for now. Wait for my orders. With that, he turned and went back to his office, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded employees. At Jinning Pharmaceutical's headquarters, ICN was also buying frantically. She had managed to raise her shareholding from 43% to 48%. Just 3 more points, and she would achieve absolute control, completely ousting that annoying mother-daughter pair. Just then, her subordinate reported, Ms. Yin, the institution that was competing with us has stopped. Stopped. A cold smile touched ICN's lips. Given how aggressive they were, they must have run out of ammunition. Investigate. Find out which reckless financing institution dared to snatch food from my plate. However, the good times didn't last. Before the morning session ended, an official announcement from the hospital where the incident occurred detonated the entire market like a bombshell. The announcement clearly stated that the cause of organ failure in numerous patients had been identified as a rare adverse reaction to another drug, entirely unrelated to Jinning Pharmaceutical's new wonder drug. The moment the news broke, the market reversed instantly. The investors and institutions who had just been celebrating their successful escape let out heart-wrenching wails. Elaine Yin and her mother, Lydia Liu, who were frantically dumping their shares, were utterly dumbfounded. Lydia Liu berated her daughter over the phone, unaware that she herself had just sold off 3% of her own shares. In an instant, all the sell orders on the limit-down board were withdrawn, replaced by a surging tide of buy orders. Xian slammed her fist on the desk, producing a dull thud. Damn it, just 3 points short. Why now of all times? In Liu Chen's company, however, the scene was entirely different. When Ethan Wang and Alex Xiao saw the announcement, they stood frozen for a few seconds before erupting in volcanic roars. Boss, good news. Huge news is here. Leo Chun was also shaken by the sudden news. He knew there would be a reversal, but he hadn't expected it to be so fast, so fierce. He rushed out of his office, saw his two frenzied subordinates, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Stay calm. We'll see this afternoon. After the afternoon session opened, Jinning Pharmaceutical, as expected, broke through the limit down and shot straight for the limit up. This heart-stopping gamble ended in Leo Chen's complete victory. At the same time, an investigation report on the mysterious buyer appeared on Xian's desk. Leo Chun. She stared at the young, somewhat familiar face and paused. She remembered the calm-eyed boy at the supercar club who had refused her verbal provocations. A playful smile touched Xian's lips, and she dialed Tony Tang's number. Tony? Send me Leo Chen's number. Leo Chun had just returned to his dorm, yet to savor his victory, when an unfamiliar number called. He answered, and a slightly hoarse yet commanding female voice came through. Leo Chun, Jinning University, School of Art and Design, Sculpture Department. I told you I'd take you for a lap on the track. Leo's hand trembled, and the phone nearly slipped from his grasp. It was her, that crazy woman. He quickly made an excuse. Oh, Ms. Yan, I'm not in town right now. I'm in Shanghai for a medical checkup. The doctor said I have a weak heart. A weak heart, and you're buying a supercar? The voice on the other end turned cold. Stop messing with me. Before Leo could invent another excuse, she hung up. Before Leo could breathe a sigh of relief, the roar of an engine, tearing through the air, erupted outside the dorm building. The immense sound, like the roar of an ancient beast, startled half the campus. Leo and his roommates rushed to the corridor to look down. A deep green Lamborghini Reventon, looking like an alien ghost, was parked below. The scissor doors slowly rose, and a pair of long, beautiful legs in racing pants emerged, followed by Xian's exquisitely made-up but frosty face. She was holding a megaphone. Leo Chun. The voice from the megaphone thundered across the campus. Be my boyfriend. If you don't agree today, I'm not leaving. Leo's knees went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. Amid the envious, jealous, and hateful gazes of all the male students in the building, he covered his face and practically stumbled downstairs. Lady, stop shouting. Let's go. He yanked open the car door and dove in. Xian smiled with satisfaction, casually tossed the megaphone into a trash can, and with a press of the accelerator, sped away under countless stunned gazes. On the ring road, Leo had just recovered from the social death experience. What on earth do you want? Xian held the steering wheel with one hand, turned her head, and smiled charmingly. To talk about the Jinning Pharmaceutical business, of course. On the racetrack, the deep green ghost once again transformed into a man-eating beast. Xian firmly strapped Leo into the passenger seat and began her negotiation. The 3% of shares you hold, 1.5 billion, sell them to me. 2.7 billion, not a cent less, Leo said through gritted teeth, clutching the handle. Looks like you won't give up until you're faced with the grim reality. Xian's eyes turned wild. She floored the accelerator, and the Lamborghini's engine roared deafeningly as the car shot forward like an arrow. Leo felt himself pinned to the seat by an immense force, the world outside blurring into streaks of light. The speedometer needle climbed frantically. 200, 250, 300. At the extreme speed of nearly 350 kilometers per hour, the shadow of death loomed over the cockpit. Xian, however, was unfazed, letting out a loud shout to release her tension. 2 billion, selling or not. Leo Jin Nanda Yaola Yalto. Xian's patience seemed to have run out. She unbuckled her seatbelt, and with a clean flip, straddled Leo, her arm clamping around his throat like an iron pincer, her breath like an orchid. Sister is giving you one last chance. 2.2 billion. Leo was overwhelmed by the fragrance from her body and the astonishing force, his mind going blank. He could feel the softness and strength of her body, as well as the suffocating sensation on his throat, but he still shook his head forcefully. However, Xian suddenly froze. She looked down at their extremely ambiguous position, and her cheeks flushed crimson. She scrambled back to the driver's seat, tidied her messy hair, and spat. Pervert. A faint, unnatural blush still colored Xian's cheeks. She didn't dare look at Leo Chin again, just gripped the steering wheel, her breathing heavy. The brief loss of composure had completely shattered the intimidating presence she had carefully constructed. I'll take you back first. This matter. Let me think about it. She was the first to break the silence, her voice carrying a hint of panic even she didn't notice. Leo Chin nodded, also relieved. Take me back to my company. You've turned the school upside down for me. I can't go back there. TCH. Xian regained some of her queenly demeanor. Having a beautiful woman in a supercar chase after you is something countless people would envy, and you're complaining. Though she said this, a peculiar emotion flickered in her beautiful eyes. What if I really were chasing you? No, I'm not worthy. Leo Chin shivered. He couldn't handle this woman. With a press of the accelerator, the Lamborghini glided into the traffic like a ghost. As Leo Chun fled into the office building, Xian watched his retreating figure, a smile unconsciously forming on her lips. You little punk, trying to make over $1 billion off me? Sooner or later, I'll make you cough it all up, with interest. Leo Chun had just reached his company's entrance when he was stopped by a group of men in black suits. Sophia Su rushed out. Boss, someone is here to see you. They won't leave until they do. What is it with today? Leo Chun frowned, walking into his office. On the sofa sat a man and a woman. The woman was gaudily made up with an arrogant demeanor. The man fawned over her like a lapdog. You're Leo Chun? The woman stood up, her elegance tinged with a worldly air. I am. My name is Elaine Yen, a director at Jinning Pharmaceutical. She let out a flirtatious laugh and got straight to the point. I'm here today to buy the shares you hold. Another yen. Leo Chun instantly understood that the drama of a wealthy family's internal strife had come to his doorstep. But he felt no goodwill toward the woman before him. Her arrogant, dismissive attitude was extremely off-putting. Still, business was business. 2.7 billion. Leo Chun stated the same price. What? Are you insane? The man beside Elaine, Derek He, immediately jumped up, pointing at Leo Chun's nose. More than doubling your money in less than a day? Why don't you just rob a bank? Elaine silenced him with a cold glance, then sidled up to Leo, her eyes full of seduction. She took the freshly lit cigarette from Leo's lips, placed it between her own red ones, and exhaled a puff of suggestive smoke. Handsome, give me a discount, won't you? I can. Keep you company for a few days. Leo Chun choked on a mouthful of smoke, coughing violently. He looked at this woman, openly flirting with another man in front of her own husband, and his stomach churned. He pulled away, stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his voice turning cold. The price is the price. Whoever can afford it gets the shares. Elaine Yan's face instantly darkened. She gritted her teeth behind his back, then pressed against him again, linking her soft body to his arm. It's okay if you don't like me. I can find someone you do like. How about a famous celebrity? I want money. I'm only selling for money. Leo Chun finally lost his patience and snapped. Leo Chun. Elaine completely dropped her facade, pointing at him with a ferocious expression. Be careful you don't choke on that money. There are cameras in my office, Leo Chun retorted coldly. You threatened me today. If anything happens to me in the future, you'll be the prime suspect. Elaine stomped her foot in frustration and stormed out. Leo Chun sat in his chair, alarm bells ringing in his mind. It was time. He had to build his own security force. He immediately called Andy in. Andy, I need to know who at the financing institution leaked my information. After dealing with that, he grabbed his car keys, intending to check on his Ferrari in the underground garage, which he hadn't had a chance to properly enjoy. However, as he stepped into the dimly lit parking garage, he heard a suppressed, questioning voice from a corner. Spill it. What's Leo Chen's background? Leo Chen's heart tightened. He followed the sound and saw several thuggish-looking youths surrounding Sophia Su. Hey, who are you people? Leo Chen shouted. Run. Sophia Su saw him, her face filled with terror, and she shook her head desperately. They're bad people. The blonde leader turned around with a sinister grin. So you're Leo Chen? Boys, grab him. Before he finished speaking, the group lunged at him like hungry wolves. Leo Chun instantly calmed himself, delivering a precise kick to the groin of the first man, felling him. But he was outnumbered. He was soon tackled to the ground. Just then, Sophia Su screamed and threw herself on top of him, shielding him with her own slender body. A hail of fists and feet rained down on her back with dull thuds. Leo Chen's eyes turned crimson. Just as he was about to fight back desperately, a booming shout echoed like thunder. Stop! Driver Lu's figure rushed over like a descending tiger. He took off his suit jacket, his movements clean and efficient, grappling, leg sweeps, heavy punches. In just over 10 seconds, the previously arrogant thugs were all on the ground, groaning in pain. The blonde, seeing the situation turn bad, spat out a threat and fled with his men. At the hospital, the strong smell of disinfectant filled the air. After an examination, Sophia Su had only suffered some soft tissue bruises and was not seriously injured. Leo Chun sat by her hospital bed, his face so grim that it seemed water could drip from it. Was it Mark Xing? Or Elaine Yan? Whoever it was, he would remember this debt. He walked to a flower bed outside the hospital and lit a cigarette, the murderous intent in his heart boiling like never before. Just then, a suppressed argument came from nearby. Brother, I swear I'll turn myself in after this one job. Mom's illness can't wait any longer. No, this is our country. The people you'd be targeting are ordinary citizens. Leo Chun looked over and saw two towering, muscular men arguing in distress. On their armbands were embroidered for characters. Eastguard. Were these men bodyguards? He instinctively took half a step back. The two men instantly turned, their gazes cold and sharp, as if forged in a sea of blood and corpses, making Leo's heart tremble. My name is Roy Lei, and this is my brother Rex. The calmer of the two spoke. We previously served with Blackwater Security on a 5-year mission in the Middle East. Mercenaries. Leo Chen's heart leaped. He followed the brothers to a hospital room and saw their white-haired, frail mother lying on the bed. He deeply understood what it meant to be a hero brought down by a lack of money. Without hesitation, Leo Chun went to the payment window and directly deposited 800,000 into the elderly woman's account. Boss, Roy Lay grabbed Leo Chun's hand. This tough man, who had faced a hail of bullets on the battlefields of the Middle East without flinching, was now trembling with emotion. From now on, my life is yours. For hours later, the surgery was a success. After settling their mother, Roy found his brother. Weren't you always talking about putting your life on the line? This time, do it for Mr. Chun. What's the big deal? Rex pounded his chest. If Mr. Chun needs it, he can take this worthless life of mine anytime. As night deepened, Leo Chun emerged from Sophia Sue's hospital room. By the flower bed, the towering figure was silently smoking. It was Rex. Seeing Leo Chun, he immediately extinguished his cigarette and stood ramrod straight. Mr. Chun. Leo Chun nodded without speaking. The two men looked at each other in the quiet night. A powerful alliance of violence, forged by money and a life-saving grace, was officially born in that moment. By the hospital flower bed, the night was as black as ink. Rex's hoarse voice slowly unspooled tales of blood and fire from the past. Leo Chun listened quietly, as if he could see the yellow sands, the smoke of battle, and the figures of brothers struggling on the line between life and death in that distant land. He clapped Rex's broad shoulder, offering no grand words of comfort, only a simple, don't dwell on it. Now that you're back, live well, and live for 3 as well. The next morning, Leo Chun awoke in a soft, fragrant embrace, realizing he had somehow fallen asleep on Sophia Sue's hospital bed, the woman in his arms sleeping soundly. A little embarrassed, he quietly slipped out of bed and left the room, just in time to answer a call from ICN. Leo Chun, did that bitch Elaine Yin come looking for you yesterday? The voice on the other end carried a hint of barely concealed tension. Yes, she was here. Damn it, what a bitch. She didn't do that thing to you, did she? What thing? Leo Chun teased deliberately. What else? Besides throwing money and sleeping around, what else does that bitch know how to do? Heh, do you think I'd be interested in her? True, ICN muttered, then changed the subject. Come to my company. We need to talk. After hanging up, Leo Chun took Rex with him. He had no intention of being physically intimidated by that crazy woman again. When the car arrived at the Jinning Pharmaceutical building, they had an unfortunate encounter with Elaine Yin in the lobby. She swayed her hips, flanked by a group of bodyguards, and sidled up to him with a seductive gaze. Well, hello there, little brother Leo. Did you miss me? Leo Chun frowned. Just as he was about to speak, a group of imposing women in black suits descended from upstairs, forcefully clearing a path through Elaine Yin's bodyguards. The lead woman made a respectful gesture for Leo to proceed. Elaine stomped her foot in frustration, but could only watch as he walked away. In the top-floor office, ICN got straight to the point. I asked you here today about the stocks. Is the money ready? Money, money, money. That's all you care about. ICN rolled her eyes at him. As for the money, I only have 2.3 billion in cash. I also have 200 acres of land in the development zone, worth about 400 million. If you agree, it's a deal. If not, I'm out of cash too. She tossed a map at him. Leo Chun glanced at the plot of land, prime real estate, nestled between mountains and water, with huge potential. He quickly did the math. Although liquidating the land would take time, unlocking over 2 billion in capital immediately was undoubtedly the better deal for him. All right, it's a deal. Is your company registered? Individuals can't buy and sell land. Leo Chun paused. He hadn't actually thought about that. Seeing his expression, ICN was both amused and exasperated, an absurd thought even crossing her mind. If she were to marry him into the family, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. All right, I'll help you register the company. We'll sign the contracts this afternoon. With ICN's formidable resources, a company named Tungshao Capital Management completed all registration procedures within a few short hours. That afternoon, after the lawyers from both sides reviewed the documents, the contracts were signed. 2.3 billion in cash was transferred to Leo Chun's personal account, and the land transfer agreement officially took effect. As they shook hands to part ways, ICN gave him a meaningful look. You can think about my other proposal when you get back. After Leo Chun left with Rex and the legal team, the smile on ICN's face vanished, replaced by an icy killing intent. Someone, call a general shareholders meeting. That afternoon, the board of directors of Jinning Pharmaceutical underwent a major reshuffle. All members of Lydia Liu and Elaine Yan's faction were purged from the core management. Leo Chun transferred 22 of the 23 billion into the newly established capital account, leaving 100 million as pocket money. With this vast principal, he had no plans to use financial leverage for the time being. He first needed to find out who was repeatedly leaking his intelligence. Back at the hospital, Sophia Sue was ready for discharge. Roy and Rex insisted on starting their duties immediately. Unable to dissuade them, Leo Chun could only hire the best caregiver for their mother and arrange a private room. On the way back, with driver Lou driving and Sophia in the passenger seat, the back was cramped with Leo Chun and the 3 large Lay brothers, making him realize it was time to buy more cars. However, as the car entered the company's underground parking garage, a group of familiar figures appeared again. It was the blonde thug and his gang. They were blocking the way, as persistent as ghosts. They're the ones who hurt Sophia. Leo Chen's voice was ice cold. Two flames ignited in Rex's eyes. He had been looking for a way to repay his boss's kindness, and these scumbags had just delivered themselves to his doorstep. Boss, leave them to me. The car door opened, and Rex emerged like a tiger uncaged, striding towards the still jeering thugs. The gang, relying on their numbers, swarmed him. However, in the face of absolute power and skill, numbers were meaningless. Rex moved through the crowd, and every strike was accompanied by the crack of bones and screams of pain. A few dozen seconds later, all dozen or so thugs were on the ground, wailing, leaving only the blonde, so scared his legs gave out, collapsed on the floor. Rex cracked his neck, producing a series of sharp pops, a cruel smile on his lips as he advanced. Well, how do you want to die? The blonde was scared senseless. He scrambled on his knees over to Leo Chun, his head hitting the pavement like a jackhammer. Mr. Chun, spare me. It was Vance Wong who sent me. Vance Wong? A guy who runs an offshore gambling website? Leo Chun immediately connected him to stand sure. He called Andy in. Andy, focus on gathering criminal evidence on Vance Wong. Let's send him off. After dealing with the trash, Leo Chun sat in his office and began to plan his next move. Buying cars, buying a house. These two things had to be put on the agenda quickly. He needed a more professional fleet of vehicles and a safer, more private office and residence. And the fastest way to handle both was to find the most knowledgeable people in the circle. He called Tony Tang. Tony, I'm looking to buy a few things. I need some advice from the brothers. 10 minutes later, Tony Tang sent an address, Riverside Tea House. When Leo Chun arrived with Roy at the quaint private courtyard, Tony Tang and Mark Zhang were already waiting on the second-floor terrace. With them was a young man Leo had never seen before. Brother, let me introduce you, Tony Tang said enthusiastically. This is the son of Jinning Construction's #1, Barry Xiong. Leo Chun sized up the young man before him, dressed in worn-out sneakers and a t-shirt, showing no signs of being the son of a multi-billionaire real estate tycoon. Barry Xiong shook his hand warmly. Brother Chun, you're too kind. I've been wanting to come relax at Tony's place for a while, and this was the perfect opportunity. Tony Tang teased from the side. Let me tell you, Brother Chun, this kid Barry is super rich, but also super cheap, always trying to freeload off others. And he has this weird hobby of collecting mansions, just so he can stomp on their multi-million-dollar floors with his beat-up old sneakers. Barry didn't get angry, instead laughing. Come on, I'm not that bad. Sometimes I switch to a pair of slightly newer, second-hand sneakers. Leo Chun. The voice from the megaphone thundered across the university campus, echoing from a deep green Lamborghini Reventon. Be my boyfriend. If you don't agree today, I'm not leaving. Every student stared, dumbfounded. The woman holding the megaphone was Ice Yin, the city's untouchable queen, president of a billion-dollar pharmaceutical giant. And her target was Leo Chun, a sculpture student nobody knew. But they didn't know the man she was hunting. They didn't see him in a secret trading room, calmly commanding. All in. It's a gamble of over $1.2 billion in total, as he bet his entire fortune on her company's collapsing stock. They didn't see him later, pinned to the passenger seat of her Lamborghini as it screamed down a private racetrack at 350 km/h. The 3% of shares you hold, she hissed, her body pressing against his, an arm clamped around his throat. 2.2 billion. Sell them to me. This is your last chance. He was just a student betrayed in his past life, cheated out of his family's savings. Now, reborn with a terrifying ability to see the future, he held the queen's entire empire in his grasp. And he just smiled back at her. The price, he said, his voice steady against the roar of the engine, is 2.7 billion. Not a cent less. The Ferrari's engine was still warm, the acrid smell of burnt rubber lingered on the track, and Leo Chen's heart rate was just returning to normal after hitting top speed. In the club's buffet restaurant, Tony Tang nudged him with an elbow, winking at a few alluring figures surrounded by other rich kids. I can't get it. Want me to set you up with a couple? Leo Chen smiled and shook his head. He knew that the $4.6 million Ferrari was his pass, allowing him to sit here and calmly refuse such readily available temptations. He was more concerned now with how to store this steel beast. Tony advised against driving it back to the company's underground garage. The supercar's chassis was too low, and even at its highest setting, it risked being scraped. No problem, just have it towed back for me for now. Leo Chen's tone was as casual as arranging for a package delivery. Once I get my license, have it brought back out. I'll buy a house with a garage for it then. That one sentence made the few rich kids who had been eavesdropping nearby retract their probing glances. Casually buying a house just to park a supercar. That was the kind of talk fitting for someone in their circle. They no longer doubted that the young man before them had the means to be their equal. While waiting for the tow truck in the lounge, Leo Chen drifted off to sleep. He had a long, surreal dream filled with a psychedelic mix of money and hormones. He was jolted awake by a soft, seductive voice in his ear. A woman he didn't recognize was batting her eyelashes at him, asking for the stamp from his invitation. Only then did Leo Chun understand the true meaning behind Tony's earlier comment about someone else picking up the tab. He gave her the stamp, refused her offer of anything you want that followed, and stood up to straighten his clothes, his understanding of this circle's games deepening. Meanwhile, in a girls' dorm at Jining University's foreign language department, a small storm was brewing. As Summer Xia fretted over her awkward walking posture, a delivery call came from the computer store. With her roommate's help, an office computer, in a case much larger than usual, was brought in. Summer, don't you already have a computer? Why buy another one? And this doesn't look like it can run games, her roommate Julie Shu said, curiously examining the plain black metal box. A shy blush crept up Summer Xia's cheeks. It was a gift. From your boyfriend? No, more important than a boyfriend. Amid her roommate's teasing guesses that it must be her father, Summer Xia murmured with a love-struck expression, it's from someone I belong to, but who doesn't belong to me. He's a boy who shines. When the computer booted up, its lightning-fast speed stunned the girls. Dubiously, they copied a game file over and clicked run. The game launched instantly. Summer Xia skillfully logged in and moved her character around. It was unbelievably smooth. She tried cranking the graphics and all special effects to their maximum settings, but the frame rate remained rock solid, even several times smoother than her own $5,000 or $6,000 computer. Oh my god, Summer, try running 2 clients at once. When 2 game clients ran simultaneously with the same silky smoothness, the entire dorm fell silent. A stunned Summer Xia opened the system configuration page. Staring at the long list of absurdly high-end hardware models, some core components even duplicated, she instantly understood. The boy who shined had, in the clumsiest and most domineering way, given her the surprise of a lifetime. But at that moment, the boy who shined himself was looking rather grim. He had just returned to his dorm to find his roommate Jerry and Mandy Ma making out on the sofa without a care in the world. He tactfully retreated, had a cigarette in the next dorm over, and then took a taxi straight to Scholar's Grace Residences. Opening Yolanda Yu's apartment door, he was hit by the strong smell of alcohol. The dining room was a mess of overturned bottles, and 3 girls were all passed out drunk. Leo Chen sighed. With great effort, he managed to carry Yolanda's 2 friends to the beds in the guest room. He returned to the dining room and saw Yolanda Yu swaying, holding onto a chair for support. Her already beautiful face was even more alluring in her drunken state. Leo Chun walked over, and just as she was about to fall, he swept her into his arms. You're not allowed to drink this much again. It's dangerous. Oh, okay, Leo, I'll listen to you. The girl in his arms murmured, her eyes hazy. Cleaning up a 90-pound, constantly squirming drunken beauty was as physically demanding as a high-intensity workout. When Leo Chen finally got her into bed and saw her sleeping soundly, sucking her index finger like a child, an uncontrollable heat surged through him. In the dead of night, all was quiet. Leo Chen sat on the living room sofa, having just lit a cigarette. The city's neon lights outside the window cast deep shadows on his profile. Just then, a dark figure falling rapidly outside the window caught his eye. It was followed by a dull thud and the sharp sound of a rope pulling taut. The figure jerked to a stop midair and began to struggle violently. Leo Chen's pupils contracted. He rushed to the window in a few strides. A man, with ropes tied around his neck and waist, was hanging in the air more than 10 stories up like a grotesque pendulum. His face had turned a purplish blue, his eyes rolled back, and his hands clawed uselessly at the air, a hoarse, wheezing sound escaping his throat. He had to save him. Without a second thought, Leo Chun grabbed the rope on the windowsill and yanked it inward, pulling the man's body closer to the wall. He roared with all his might, grabbed the security bars. The dying man seemed to regain a sliver of consciousness and clung desperately to the metal bars, relieving the pressure on his neck and finally managing to gasp a breath of life-saving air. Leo Chun didn't hesitate. He tore down the heavy curtains, twisted them into a sturdy rope with brute force, and tossed it down. Grab it. Tie it around your waist. The man shakily complied. Veins bulged on Leo Chen's arms as his muscles tensed. He wrapped the curtain rope tightly around his hands and heaved upwards. The man outside, driven by a powerful will to live, started climbing, ignoring the terrifying abyss below. 7 or 8 minutes later, with a final, near-exhausted roar from Leo Chun, the man was finally dragged from the brink of death into the room. Both men collapsed on the floor, chests heaving, gasping for air. Leo Chun passed him a cigarette, his voice hoarse. What the hell were you thinking, trying to hang yourself? Man, brother, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I fell. The man lit the cigarette, his hands still trembling. I'm a reporter. It turned out this entertainment reporter, Andian, had been trying to get a scoop on a celebrity in the opposite building. He'd gone to extreme lengths, but in his focus, he got tangled in his own safety rope, slipped, and ended up in a real-life version of self-hanging. He recounted the hardships and dangers of his job, hiding at the bottom of a pool disguised as a tile for 4 hours, camping in a manhole for 7 days, nearly being hauled away by a garbage truck while hiding in a dumpster. The money he earned wasn't even enough to cover his equipment and medical bills. Liu Chen listened quietly, but a storm was raging in his mind. He realized that on his path forward, he would inevitably encounter all sorts of obstacles, and people like Andean, with their networks of informants, were exactly the eyes and ears he needed. A grand plan quickly took shape in his mind. Andy. Liu Chen stood up, clapping him on the shoulder, his eyes glinting with a profound light. Come on, let's go get a drink. To calm your nerves. On the second-floor terrace of the Riverside Tea House, the air was filled with the rich aroma of premium coffee beans and the damp scent of the evergreen river. Tony Tang, Mark Zhang, and the others listened, somewhat dumbfounded, as Liu Chen casually listed his shopping list. 2 business vans, 2 SUVs, 2 Mercedes S-Class sedans. That was another several million in expenses. However, this was just the appetizer. I also need a Riverview apartment by the Evergreen River. A large flat would be nice. Under 1,000 square meters is fine. Liu Chen's tone was as if he were picking out a cabbage at the market. Everyone present fell silent. Although they were all top-tier rich kids with considerable wealth, very few of them could spend 100 million in cash without blinking an eye like Liu Chen. Barry Xiong, the son of a real estate tycoon who usually wore worn-out sneakers, also dropped his lazy demeanor, his eyes becoming serious. It seems, I can't keep my ultimate luxury apartment after all. He sighed, then chuckled. But that's fine. There's a king unit at Riverside 1 that a friend was holding for me, but my company needs funds right now, so I can't buy it for a while. If Brother Chen takes it, it's one less thing for me to worry about. I also need a new office space, Liu Chen continued, preferably a standalone building near Jining University. A standalone building? The group was shocked again. Buying an entire building? This move was beyond their understanding of personal consumption. I happen to have a project under my name. Barry Xiong's eyes lit up. By Qian Lake, an 8-story standalone office building, 16,000 square meters. The main structure and facilities are all complete. If you're interested, you'd be doing me a huge favor. What followed for the next half hour was a real-life version of buying property like buying groceries. The group traveled in a grand procession to Qian Lake. In front of the office building, which stood on a hillside overlooking the vast, sparkling lake, Liu Chen took only a few glances before finalizing the deal with Barry, 80 million, with a $10 million standalone villa as a bonus. Afterward, the convoy returned to the city center, heading straight for the ceiling of Jinning's real estate prices, Riverside 1. On the 50th floor, in the ultimate luxury residence of 800 square meters, complete with its own gym and private cinema, Liu Chen once again showed no hesitation, immediately having Sophia Su transfer 12 million to secure the keys. Tony Tang and the others followed behind, their initial shock turning into a sort of numbness. They watched Liu Chen casually sign contracts totaling nearly 100 million, with only one thought in their minds. This guy was the true, ultimate cash king. As night fell, Liu Chen declined Barry's dinner invitation. He drove the red Ferrari 458, which he hadn't had a chance to properly experience yet, from the company's underground garage, escorted by Roy Lei in a Mercedes E300, towards Jining Institute of Technology. He had promised Yolanda Yu he would watch her performance tonight. On stage, under the spotlight, Yolanda Yu's singing was beautiful, but she couldn't hide the disappointment in her eyes. She repeatedly scanned the audience, but never saw the familiar figure or the Mercedes she was expecting. Just as she finished the last note and was about to bow and exit, the roar of an engine, tearing through the night sky, grew closer, instantly capturing everyone's attention. A fiery red steel beast, looking as if it had come from the future, slowly drove into the venue under countless stunned gazes. The neon lights traced brilliant streaks across its sleek body. The door opened, and Liu Chen stepped out of the driver's seat. At that moment, the entire venue fell silent. Yolanda Yu's eyes instantly shone with unprecedented brilliance. She gathered her skirt, and like a happy butterfly, flew down the stage and into Liu Chen's arms, under the envious, jealous, and shocked gazes of the entire student body and faculty. What took you so long? I thought you forgot. Her voice was tearful, yet filled with immense satisfaction. Liu Chen said nothing, just smiled, and amidst her gasp of surprise, swept her up into his arms like a true princess and gently placed her in the Ferrari's passenger seat. Tonight, you are mine. With a press of the accelerator, the Ferrari let out a deafening roar and sped away, leaving behind countless broken hearts and a chorus of colorful greetings to Liu Chen's ancestors. In the car, Yolanda Yu, experiencing the ultimate in speed and passion, looked at the luxurious interior, completely immersed in a sense of immense happiness. Wow, Leo, is this your car too? It must be very expensive, right? It's all right, over 4 million. That number, like a clap of thunder, completely shattered Yolanda Yu's perception of wealth. She looked at the man beside her, his charm, enhanced by money, radiating a divine and irresistible aura. At home in Scholar's Grace residences, the passion was fiery. Yolanda Yu, filled with a great sense of satisfaction and vanity, completely let go of all her inhibitions. She murmured, "Leo, you were so incredibly handsome today. Was I handsome at school, or just now? Stop it. Both." Early the next morning, Leo Chun was up as usual. When he went downstairs, he found the Mercedes E300 parked quietly beside the Ferrari. Driver Lou was standing outside, and Roy Lei had slept in the car all night. In the hospital's early morning, sunlight streamed through the window, falling on Sophia Sue's sleeping face. Leo Chun awoke in a soft, fragrant embrace, realizing he had somehow fallen asleep on the hospital bed. A little embarrassed, he quietly slipped out of bed and left the room, just in time to answer a call from ICN. On the other end, the queenly voice carried a hint of barely concealed tension. "Leo Chun, did that bitch Elaine Yin come looking for you yesterday?" After confirming, she extended an invitation. "Come to my company. We need to talk." Leo Chun took Rex with him. He had no intention of being physically intimidated by that crazy woman again. The car arrived at the Jinning Pharmaceutical building, and as fate would have it, they ran into Elaine Yin in the lobby. She swayed her hips, sidling up with a seductive gaze, only to be forcefully separated by a group of women in black suits descending from upstairs. In the top-floor office, ICN got straight to the point. "The money, I only have 2.3 billion in cash. I also have 200 acres of land in the development zone, worth about 400 million. If you agree, it's a deal." Leo Chen glanced at the high potential plot of land, quickly did the math, and decisively agreed. With ICN's formidable resources, a company named Tungshao Capital Management completed all registration procedures within a few short hours. That afternoon, the two sides signed the contracts, and 2.3 billion in cash and a $400 million piece of land were officially transferred to Leo Chen. After handling this massive transaction, Leo Chen's life seemed to return to the daily routine of campus. On the morning track, Summer Xiao, like a little wife, wiped his sweat and handed him water, their sweet interactions drawing countless envious glances. However, this peace was soon broken. In the cafeteria, Lena Lee's sudden appearance instantly filled the air with the smell of gunpowder. "Didn't we agree not to interfere with each other?" Summer Xiao's face turned hostile. "I'm not interfering with you. Can't I have breakfast with Leo Chun?" Lena Lee retorted without backing down. The two girls went back and forth, from who had breakfast with him more often to who could help him with his laundry, waging a war without smoke, which ended with Summer Xia storming off in a huff. After sending Lena Lee off, Leo Chun returned to the company and began to plan his next move. He ordered Sophia Sue's two newly formed trading teams to collaborate for the first time, trading a small-cap stock called Liaodong High Tech. This wasn't for profit, but to build team cohesion in preparation for larger capital operations in the future. After issuing the orders, a cold glint flashed in Leo Chen's eyes. He made a call, his voice becoming deep and unfamiliar. "Hello? Is this Scarlett Zhao?" "This is Jerry G." The name on the other end. The woman who had caused his family's ruin and his own downfall in his previous life. Her voice was filled with suppressed excitement. Leo Chun drove the Mercedes, with Rex and Wildcat, presenting himself as a successful businessman, and pulled up to Jinning Normal University. Scarlett Zhao, dressed to the nines and filled with dreams of marrying into a wealthy family, got into the car. Leo Chun deliberately took her to a simple noodle shop, claiming it was to cleanse the palate, and then took out a thick stack of cash, telling her to give it to a beggar on the street. Wildcat quietly followed and reported back to Leo Chun that Scarlett had not given a single penny, pocketing the entire 1,000 yuan for herself. Leo Chun sneered inwardly. This woman was rotten to the core. "Will you marry me?" On the way to the hotel, Scarlett asked the exact same question as in his previous life. Leo Chun smiled and replied, "After tonight, if you're willing." Scarlett shyly lowered her head, calculating in her mind. One night in exchange for 20 to 30,000 worth of gifts, plus a chance to marry into a rich family. A surefire deal. In the hotel room, Leo Chun sat on the sofa, his mind replaying the events of his past life. The 50,000 yuan he was cheated out of, his parents aging overnight, the despair of being forced onto the rooftop. Overwhelming hatred made his body turn cold. When Scarlett finished washing up and excitedly showed him her new smartphone, he suppressed his murderous intent and forced a smile. And for Leo Chun, the thrill of revenge made his every action at this moment feel like a cold, calculated ritual. Early the next morning, Leo Chun, who hadn't slept all night, had dark circles under his eyes, and the ashtray was full of cigarette butts. Scarlett emerged from the room, leaning on the doorframe, and asked with concern, "Darling, why did you smoke so much?" "Just worried," Leo Chin smiled. "Worried about what? Can we go shopping for bags today?" "Sigh, that's what I'm worried about. How to buy you bags." Leo Chen stood up, his face full of dejection and sincerity. "To pursue you, I've spent all my college tuition for the year. The car was rented, The people were hired, and it all ends today. Scarlett, I really like you, and I was willing to spend all my savings on you. Do you still want to be with me? Scarlett was completely stunned. She looked at the man before her, his eyes red-rimmed, his face dejected, and then recalled the glaring red mark on the bed last night. Overwhelming rage instantly consumed her. Jerry G, you liar. You damn liar. You want me to be with you? In your dreams, she shrieked hysterically. And you have to compensate me. Pay up. How you broke it, you can fix it. Leo Chun looked at her ugly expression, and the last shred of hesitation in his heart vanished. He calmly asked, Are you sure you don't want me to marry you? Get lost. If you mention that word again, I'll fight you to the death. Early the next morning, Leo Chun awoke from Sophia Su's hospital room and quietly left. He didn't disturb driver Lu, who was still asleep in the car, but went to the Lei brothers' mother's hospital room. The old lady was in good spirits and thanked him profusely. As they were talking, Isian's call came through, summoning him to her company for a meeting. After hanging up, Leo Chun took Rex with him. He had no intention of being physically intimidated by that crazy woman again. And this trip to Jinning Pharmaceutical ultimately ended in a massive transaction totaling 2.7 billion, 2.3 billion in cash plus 400 million in land, declaring Leo Chen's complete victory. After handling this wealth that would drive anyone mad, Leo Chen's life seemed to return to the daily routine of campus. On the morning track, Summer Xiao, like a little wife, wiped his sweat and handed him water, their sweet interactions drawing countless envious glances. However, this peace was soon broken. In the cafeteria, Lena Lee's sudden appearance instantly filled the air with the smell of gunpowder. What are you doing? Didn't we agree not to interfere with each other? Summer Xiao's smile vanished. I'm not interfering with you. Can't I have breakfast with Leo Chun? Lena Lee retorted without backing down. She elegantly sat down and placed a peeled egg in Leo Chen's bowl. The two girls went back and forth, from who had breakfast with him more often to who could help him with his laundry. Summer Xiao flaunted her daily companionship, while Lena Lee, with a single line, Leo, which outfit are you wearing later? I'll get it for you, hinted at her control over Leo's off-campus base, easily winning the round. Ultimately, the duel ended with Summer Xia storming off after leaving a parting shot. Remember to pick me up on Monday night. After sending off the jealous Summer Xia, Lena Lee triumphantly raised an eyebrow, then quickly reverted to a gentle demeanor, handing Leo Chen a carefully selected set of casual wear from an international luxury brand. Looking at the expensive outfit, Leo Chun smiled helplessly. In front of this girl, he seemed to always be unable to say no. On the weekend, the Jinning International Convention and Exhibition Center was bustling with people. The annual International Auto Show attracted the attention of the entire city. While countless people stood in long lines under the scorching sun, the Mercedes-Benz E300 carrying Leo Chun, driven by Rex, smoothly entered the exclusive VIP channel and drove directly to the entrance of the internal lounge. Lena Lee looked at the seemingly endless line outside the window, then at the spacious and quiet exclusive channel before her, and for the first time, truly felt the weight of the word privilege. At the entrance of the lounge, rows of supercars of various shapes, like a group of beasts ready to pounce, lay quietly, exuding a heart-pounding pressure. She nervously clutched Leo Chen's sleeve and whispered, Leo, are these cars? All very expensive. They're all right, nothing too outrageous. A few dozen million at most. Leo Chen's tone was as flat as if he were discussing the weather. In the VIP lounge, Tony Tang, Mark Zhang, Barry Xiong, and others were already waiting. After some pleasantries, they keenly picked up on the word friend Leo Chen used in his introductions, and all gave him a knowing thumbs up. Mark Zhang even took the opportunity to lean in and quickly whisper in his ear, Brother Leo, you're the man. At 9 in the morning, the exhibition officially began. Leo Chun and his group walked out of the lounge in a grand procession. Sophia Su was already waiting outside with the finance, new driver, and security teams. This impressive entourage caused the crowd to instinctively part wherever they went. Inside the exhibition hall, the music was deafening. Under the spotlights, brand-new luxury cars gleamed with a captivating luster, and tall, beautiful models struck various alluring poses, attracting a frenzy of cameras. Lena Lee was somewhat overwhelmed by the dazzling scene, even covering her skirt when she noticed some photographers' lewd camera angles. Tony Tang's Mercedes-Benz booth was undoubtedly one of the most popular in the entire exhibition. Leo Chun didn't spend much time choosing, simply pointing to the new S600 with the most commanding presence, and said, This one, top spec. You got it. Tony Tang beamed. V12 engine, rear seat ventilation, heating, massage. It has everything. Sophia, transfer the money. Lena Lee nudged him from the side and whispered, Aren't you even going to ask how much it costs? Leo Chun just smiled. When no one was looking, she sneaked a peek at the price tag. The string of numbers, 2,489,800, made her gasp. Next, Leo Chun truly began to buy cars like groceries. At the Toyota booth, he pointed to an Alphard, which in Lena Lee's eyes was insanely priced at over $600,000, and told Tony Tang, two of these. In the Land Rover and Audi sections, he picked out a Range Rover and a Q7 for the Lay brothers. In less than an hour, he had casually acquired 5 cars with a total value of nearly $6 million. When he ran out of drivers, he simply had members of the security team stay behind to wait for the cars. The entire process was so smooth that even Tony Tang and the others were a bit numb. Finally, the group arrived at Mark Zhang's imported supercar section. This was the focal point of the entire auto show: Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren. Each one the dream of countless men. The Phaeton that Leo Chun had yet to drive, placed among a group of supercars, looked completely out of place. Lena Lee looked at it and naively asked, "What kind of idiot would buy that?" Leo Chen's face immediately darkened. "See anything you like? I'll help you pick one out," Leo Chen said to Lena Lee. Are we buying another one? Let's get one." Lena Lee cautiously pointed to a yellow sports car that she thought had the best color. Mark Zhang immediately became as excited as if he had been injected with adrenaline. "Excellent taste, miss. The latest Lamborghini LP 700-4, around $8 million on the road." Lena Lee was so scared, she almost bit her own tongue. Did I pick the wrong one? "It's fine. It's not that expensive," Leo Chen smiled, and said to Sophia Su, who was standing beside him, the same words he had repeated countless times today. "Sophia, transfer the money." Just as this $8 million transaction was about to be completed, pushing Leo Chen's image as the ultimate cash king to its peak, an arrogant voice came from the side. "Ha ha ha ha, isn't this Mr. Zhang still messing with these old clunkers of yours? Call me brother, and I'll buy out your entire booth." Everyone turned to look. A young man dressed in all white clothes, white pants, white leather shoes, even his hair was dyed white, was swaggering over with a group of equally arrogant young men. The faces of Tony Tang, Mark Zhang, and the others instantly darkened. The young man in white took off his exaggerated black-framed sunglasses, his gaze sweeping contemptuously over the group, finally landing on the plainly dressed Barry Xiong. In a tone of utmost mockery, he said, "You guys are so damn boring. Look at you all. If you said you were from a construction site, no one would doubt it." Bryce Bai's contemptuous words, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, sent ripples of anger through the VIP lounge. The aroma of coffee in the air seemed to be washed away by the sudden smell of gunpowder. Tony Tang and Mark Zhang's faces were so grim that water could be wrung from them. And Barry Xiong, the real estate scion who usually looked the most easygoing in his worn-out sneakers, now had real anger burning in his eyes. "You son of a bitch. Bryce Bai, are you looking to die?" Barry roared, his clenched fists turning white at the knuckles, ready to charge. "Come on, you think you're tough? Kill me." Bryce was not only unafraid but even stuck his neck out like a true hooligan. The group of dandies behind him also jeered, and the atmosphere instantly became tense. "Don't be rash." Tony Tang grabbed Barry, whispering in his ear, "He's just trying to provoke you. If you lay a hand on him today, tomorrow's headlines will be Blue City Scion causes havoc at auto show. Your family's projects can't afford that kind of trouble." Barry froze, the anger in his eyes quickly doused by reason. He took a deep breath, shot Tony a grateful look, and then said coldly to Bryce, "I'm afraid of getting my hands dirty." "Coward, you're nothing," Bryce cursed. Just as he was about to continue his insults, a cold and authoritative female voice came from the doorway, unannounced. "Let me see who's so manly. I like a man like that." Before she finished speaking, the lounge door opened, and Ice Yin, flanked by a group of black-suited bodyguards, descended like a queen. Her arrival seemed to lower the temperature in the room by several degrees. Bryce Bai, who had been so arrogant moments before, was like a rooster with its neck wrung. The swagger on his face instantly turned into fawning sycophancy. He even ran to wipe the sofa, calling out, "Sister Ice, what brings you here?" "I was just joking." All the rich kids present, including Tony Tang, stood up respectfully to greet her. This was absolute suppression, rooted in bloodline and power. Ice Yin ignored everyone, her gaze locking directly onto Leo Chun, a playful curve on her lips. "You're here too. I heard you also bought a Lamborghini. If you liked it, you should have said so. I would have bought it for you." "Sure, who doesn't like sports cars? It's not too late to give me one now," Leo Chun replied calmly, leaning back on the sofa. Ice Yan's gaze then fell on Lena Lee, who stood beside Leo Chun, looking a little lost. She sized up the girl, her tone carrying an undeniable dominance. "Little sister, are you also one of Leo Chun's girlfriends? Name your price, and give him to me." This statement shocked the entire room. No one had expected Ice Yin to show such a naked desire for Leo Chun. This was no longer simple admiration. It was a queen declaring her possession. "Sister Ice." Leo Chun stood up, shielding Lena Lee behind him. "There are plenty of talented young men here. Why fight with a little girl over one? They're not good enough at making money." Ice Yan's reply was simple and brutal. "You are." This assessment was like a silent slap across the faces of all the top-tier rich kids present, yet no one dared to refute it. Liu Chen's eyes turned completely cold. He understood now. This woman wanted to turn him into her money-making tool, and for that, she was willing to pay the price of marriage. Or rather, in her eyes, marriage itself was a transaction with a clear price tag. I'm sorry, Sister Ice, but I only make money for myself. Liu Chen's voice was not loud, but it reached everyone's ears clearly. You guys have fun. Lena, let's go. Xian said nothing, just watched him quietly. But her personal bodyguard, Zhang Yuan, understood. She took a step forward, and with two of her subordinates, formed a human wall, blocking Liu Chen's path. The air instantly froze. Liu Chen looked back at Xian, a slight smile on his lips. He gave Roylay a look, then calmly took a step back. Roylay took a step forward. He said nothing, just stood quietly in front of Zhang Yuan. But his eyes were devoid of any emotion, as if he were not looking at a person, but at a piece of prey that could be torn apart at any moment. An invisible pressure, mixed with the scent of blood and death, emanated from him. Zhang Yuan, a formidable woman who could once take on 7 opponents, now had beads of cold sweat on her forehead. She felt a chill on her neck, as if she were being stared down by a beast from hell. Move. Roy finally spoke, his voice hoarse and cold, like two pieces of metal grinding against each other. Zhang Yuan's body tensed. She hesitated for a full 3 seconds, and finally, under that almost suffocating pressure, she gritted her teeth and unwillingly stepped aside, clearing a path. A flicker of genuine astonishment crossed Xian's eyes. She watched as Liu Chen, escorted by Roy, calmly pulled open the door and strode out, his departure smooth and without a hint of hesitation. In the VIP parking lot outside the auto show, a grand transfer of power was taking place silently. When Tony Tang came out to see them off, he witnessed a scene that would be etched in his memory for a long time. 7 brand-new luxury cars formed a strange, yet powerful convoy. Roylay and Wildcat in a Land Rover Range Rover led the way. Driver Lou's $3 million Mercedes S600L was in the middle. Liu Chen's newly bought Lamborghini, like a burning flame, was flanked by an Audi Q7 and 2 Alfred business vans, with Sophia Su's Mercedes E300 bringing up the rear. 7 cars, 7 drivers and bodyguards, the low growl of the engines blending into an overture of power. The convoy did not return to the city but followed the lakeside avenue deep into the scenic Qian Lake area. Inside the S600, the extreme quietness isolated them from the outside world. Lena Li was still reeling from the shock of the earlier events. She looked at Liu Chen, feeling that this man was full of mysteries. Sophia Su was equally curious. What was the boss's intention with all these moves today? Wow, Leo, is your new company here? Lena Li asked, looking at the familiar lake scenery. Not here. Liu Chen's gaze shifted to the distant hillside. Over there. Following his finger, an 8-story modern building, standing alone on a hillside viewing platform, came into Lena Li's and Sophia Su's sight. It was like a castle overlooking the entire Qian Lake, silent and majestic. There, that's our company's future office. Liu Chen's tone was light and casual. Working here would be so beautiful. Lena Li marveled. Which floor is your company on? I think the top floor is the best. Liu Chen smiled and said something that made everyone in the car hold their breath. Which floor? From the 1st to the 8th, including the 1,000-plus square meter courtyard around it. It's all ours. The evening wind from Qian Lake, carrying a cool touch, brushed against Lena Li's cheek. After a day of commotion and shock, with her emotions fluctuating wildly, it was only now, holding the arm of the man beside her and feeling his steady pace, that she felt a sense of reality. Not far behind, 2 top-of-the-line luxury cars followed silently like steel beasts, moving at a walking pace. This tranquility, combined with the immense power it represented, created a strange and captivating contrast. Leo, she began softly. After graduation, do you want me to go back to my hometown? Liu Chen smiled, his voice gentle yet firm. I respect your choice. No matter what, I can support you. This sentence completely put Lena Li's heart at ease. She gently rested her head on Liu Chen's shoulder. She knew she could get everything she wanted from this man, except for his complete possession. Perhaps that was the price, a price she was willing to pay. The half-hour walk exhausted what little energy Lena Li had recovered. Liu Chen waved behind him, and the Land Rover Range Rover silently glided to their side. Wildcat nimbly jumped out and opened the rear door. As they sat in the car, heading towards Jining University, Lena Li looked at the rapidly receding campus scenery outside the window and suddenly felt a strong sense of disconnect. Here, most people were still clueless about their future, while Liu Chen was already stirring up storms in another world, becoming more and more different. Back in the dorm, Kevin Liu reminded him that it was his roommate's birthday tomorrow. Jerry, true to his stingy nature, after some haggling, finally agreed to be responsible for transporting the beer Liu Chen bought. Liu Chen just chuckled at this. He had already planned to enjoy what might be the last truly pure celebration of his college years. The next day, The company's move was carried out in an orderly fashion under Sophia Su's supervision. Liu Chen didn't interfere much. He drove the Land Rover, with Rex at the wheel, to the Imperial Grand Fitness Club. Serena Shi, the beautiful and incredibly flexible fitness coach, had already showered, changed, and was waiting for him after his call. Mr. Chen, let me help you with some joint mobility and warm-up exercises first. In the luxurious private training room, Liu Chen enjoyed a warm-up fit for a top tycoon. He simply lay on the massage bed, letting that body of strength and beauty stretch and press him. As Serena Shi, with her back to him, held his waist and pressed down, the perfect peach shape, so close to him, almost made him lose control. After the warm-up, Liu Chen extended an invitation. Serena, would you like to come with me somewhere? When the Phaeton parked in front of the Riverside 1 residential complex, Serena, she was still relatively calm. But when the elevator stopped on the lavishly decorated 50th floor, and there was only one magnificent door on the entire floor, she began to feel something was off. Liu Chen pushed open the door, and a world beyond her imagination unfolded before her. A living room of over 100 square meters, with a crystal chandelier on the ceiling reflecting a dreamlike light. Liu Chen didn't let her linger, but led her directly to the place she had dreamt of countless times, a private gym, also over 100 square meters, with an entire wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire Evergreen River. This is my dream. Serena, she murmured, stroking the cold equipment and looking at the slowly flowing river outside the window. If you're willing, Liu Chen walked up to her, his voice tinged with a hint of seduction. You can live here forever. He placed a heavy set of keys in her hand. I don't usually have time to manage it. Think of it as a favor between friends. You can help me look after this place. Serena, she held the keys to her dream, her body trembling slightly. Men who coveted her beauty were a dime a dozen, but someone who could meet all her stringent conditions, having immense financial strength and accepting her decision not to marry or have children. Liu Chen was the first and only one. She mustered her courage and asked the crucial question, Leo, will you get married in the future? Marry? Liu Chen's gaze drifted into the distance, the painful end of his previous life vivid in his memory. He chuckled lightly. Not possible. I'm staying single for the rest of my life. This statement, like a final magical spell, completely broke down Serena Shi's defenses. Her cheeks flushed, and she whispered, Then, can you give me a few days? Liu Chen was ecstatic. He knew that this sweetest fruit was about to be his for the picking. In high spirits, Liu Chen returned to campus, bought beer at the convenience store, and called Jerry to come down and carry it. 10 minutes later, when he returned to the opposite dorm with a few cups of fresh juice, he was met with a scene that was both comical and frustrating. Jerry was bruised and battered, with tissue stuffed in his nostrils, his clothes covered in footprints, cursing at a room full of friends. Damn it, Leo, did you set me up? I just went down to get the beer, and a bunch of guys rushed me, asking if I was Jerry G. I said yes, and they just started beating me up. Liu Chen's heart sank. He instantly understood. Mark Xing, Scarlet Zhao. This debt had been settled on the innocent Jerry so quickly. However, his friend's anger was soon drowned in alcohol and food. The birthday party began. A dozen people crammed into the small dorm room, toasting, laughing, and cursing. When the birthday cake was brought out, despite everyone's solemn promises not to waste it, a chaotic food fight was inevitable. Cream and gravy flew through the air, curses and wild laughter mixed, and the entire dorm floor echoed with the last madness of their youth. Liu Chen was the first to escape back to his dorm, burying his head under the covers, pretending to be asleep. He listened to the pounding on his door and the sound of breaking bottles outside, a long-lost, foolish grin on his face. Early the next morning, Liu Chen opened his dorm door and was hit by a pungent smell of alcohol, vomit, and leftover food, almost making him gag. The dorm across the hall was like a small disaster zone. He endured the discomfort, greeted his equally helpless roommate, and fled the scene. The morning breeze on the track cleared away the remnants of his hangover. After washing up, Lena Li was already waiting downstairs, handing him a new set of clothes bought by Summer Xia. He got into the Volkswagen Phaeton, which Mark Zhang had delivered overnight, plain on the outside but incredibly luxurious on the inside, changed into his new clothes, and completely left the chaos and noise of the campus behind. When the car drove up the hillside of Qian Lake and stopped in front of the brand-new 8-story building, a whole new world opened its doors to him. Several beautiful receptionists in professional attire greeted him with smiles. Liu Chen smiled back and walked straight to the exclusive elevator on the side. As the elevator doors slowly closed and rose smoothly, he knew that the era of Tengshao Capital had officially begun today. The exclusive elevator ascended smoothly, completely shutting out the campus noise, a chaotic mix of alcohol and youthful hormones. When the doors slid open silently, a new world unfolded before Liu Chen. Behind a wide, bright reception desk, the Lin sisters, Ella and Elia, stood gracefully, greeting him with smiles. They had taken over the assistant duties from Sophia Sue, becoming the most trusted attendants in this imperial domain. Good morning, boss. Morning to you both. A pot of tea, please, Leo Chun said casually, and Ella lightly pushed open the heavy door to his office. It was a vast, 500 square meter space. One wall was lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, while the other was a transparent glass curtain wall. Leo Chun walked to the window, looking down at the mirror-like Chien Lake and the city skyline in the distance, a sense of accomplishment and control washing over him. Boss, your tea. Ella handed him a steaming cup. This time, don't go hiding under the desk, Leo Chun teased after taking a sip. Our office is big enough now, plenty of places to hide people. Ella's face instantly turned beet red. She set down the tea tray and fled like a startled deer. A moment later, Sophia Sue knocked and entered. Her sharp business suit enhanced her calm, managerial demeanor. Boss, Jingyuan Ecology opened high and has already hit our liquidation point. The two teams are selling now. She opened a folder to report the results. The estimated profit from this wave is around 20 to 30 million. Barely acceptable. Leo Chen's assessment made even Sophia, who was accustomed to large figures, twitch her lips. A profit of 20 to 30 million was merely barely acceptable to him. Boss, what's our move today? Leo Chen opened his phone. A new message lay there, startling him slightly. Blue City Group, starting the day after tomorrow until the end of the month, would rise by a cumulative 60%. He slapped his thigh. Wasn't that the company of that idiot, Bryce Bai? This was a gift from heaven. Use all the funds from the liquidation to buy shares in Blue City Group. A cold smile flickered in Leo Chen's eyes. He quickly searched online and found that just moments ago, Blue City Group had announced a reduction in its own shareholding to raise 2.5 billion in capital. This negative news acted as a catalyst, instantly triggering a sharp drop in the stock price. It was a hunting ground tailor-made for him. In the trading room of Tungxiao Capital, under the leadership of Ethan Wong and Alex Xiao, the two teams, like a lurking great white shark, began to silently devour the massive number of shares being dumped on the market out of panic. Meanwhile, in the boardroom of Blue City Group, Bryce Bai's father, Brandon Bai, was smugly pleased that the stock price had fallen far less than expected. He even used this as proof of the group's strong risk resistance, painting a beautiful picture of the company's imminent success to the shareholders. He had no idea that a mysterious, massive fund was propping up the price for him. Subsequently, an argument between father and son ended with Bryce storming out, slamming the door. Brandon Bai trembled with rage, cursing his rebellious son, but was helpless. After setting up his move in the capital market, Leo Chen began to deal with the threats in the real world. He called Roy Lei and handed him a file. I want to see this person. On the file was a middle-aged man named Henry Han, the mole from the securities firm who had repeatedly leaked his trading information. Less than 2 hours later, Roy returned. Boss, the person is in the basement. In the cold, empty underground parking garage, Henry Han was surrounded by several imposing bodyguards, trembling. When he saw Leo Chen, he instantly recognized the young man whose information he had sold off like a piece of meat. Sir, I was wrong. Please spare me, he wailed, so terrified that he lost control of his bladder on the spot. You're worried about your family falling apart now? Leo Chen sat on a folding chair, crossing his legs, his voice as cold as a blade. Because of your greed, my subordinate and I were almost kidnapped in a parking garage. For the sake of your 16-year-old daughter, I'll give you a chance to turn yourself in. You have 1 hour. If you don't walk in there yourself, you won't get another chance. Leo Chen knew that a man like this would never have the courage to surrender. He turned and left the basement, handing Henry Han's criminal evidence to Roy. Send this to the relevant authorities. See him off. A dozen minutes later, Henry Han, still dazed and indecisive on the lakeside road, was whisked away by a screaming police car. That afternoon, the media scrambled to report that a certain fund company in Jining was being investigated for insider trading. The entire financial circle was shaken, and everyone in the know was deeply intimidated by the ruthless methods of this new capital magnate. Having established his authority, Leo Chen's actions became even more audacious. He ordered Sophia Sue to raise another 3 billion in financing, all of which was to be invested in the acquisition of Blue City Group. In one day, Tungxiao Capital spent a cumulative 2.9 billion, silently acquiring 4.9% of Blue City Group shares, becoming its fourth largest individual shareholder. And all of this did not yet need to be publicly disclosed. In the evening, Leo Chen walked out of the office building, his mood lightened by the sight of the landscaping work being done in the courtyard. Just then, an arrogant voice came from nearby. Hey, isn't that? What's his name? What a coincidence. Leo Chen turned to see Bryce by walking out of the adjacent project department with a group of people. He couldn't be bothered with this kind of trash and turned to walk back. But Bryce was relentless, following him with his group, only to be stopped by security at the company entrance. I'm not welcome here. Bryce burst out laughing. This whole Lakeside Grace project will be mine soon. I should be the one saying you're not welcome. You get out of here right now. Is that so? Liu Chen stopped, looking at him coldly. Even if you buy Lakeside Grace, it has nothing to do with me. This building and the surrounding land have already been bought by me. It's my private property. Bryce was stunned. He couldn't believe a 20-year-old could mobilize nearly 100 million in funds. I don't believe you. Men, rush in. I want to see what the hell you can do to me. Accustomed to having his way, he gave the order, and the dozen or so bodyguards behind him lunged forward like wolves. Roylay's face hardened. He stood in front of Liu Chen like an iron tower. He moved. His actions were simple, direct, efficient. A block, a kick, a whip leg, a joint lock. Every move was accompanied by the crisp sound of breaking bones and pained grunts. The dozen or so strong bodyguards were like paper in front of him. In less than half a minute, they were all on the ground, moaning. Just then, from inside the building, the rest of the security team, led by Rex, poured out like a tide. Seeing the fierce-eyed, muscle-bound men, and then his own unconscious subordinates on the ground, Bryce was completely dumbfounded. The arrogance on his face instantly froze into terror. The wind from Chien Lake swept through the silent courtyard, the air thick with a tension so palpable it had nearly solidified. Bryce looked at the groaning bodyguards scattered on the ground, then at the even more menacing group of black-suited men who had rushed out of the building. The predatory look in Roylay's eyes made him feel as if an invisible hand was squeezing his throat. Well, Bryce, it seems you're not so tough when it comes to this game either. Liu Chen's voice broke the silence, tinged with the playful cruelty of a cat toying with a mouse. Bryce swallowed hard. He was no stranger to dishing out a beating, but he had no desire to be on the receiving end. Well, some other time. Why some other time? Liu Chen waved his hand, a brilliant smile on his face. Since you're here, how about we send you to jail for a few days? Sounds about right, doesn't it? He pointed to the blinking red light of a security camera by the gate. You incited your men to trespass on private property, ignored warnings, and even intended to cause harm. We were acting in self-defense, but we certainly can't let thugs like you go unpunished. You're calling the police. Bryce looked as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world, then straightened up. You think calling the police will do anything to me? Do you have any idea who's behind me? Go on, call them. I'd like to see who dares to arrest me. Very well. You just wait. Liu Chen smiled, took out his phone, and calmly made the call. A dozen minutes later, the first to arrive weren't the police, but a pack of reporters with a keen sense for news. The blinding flashes of their cameras, like a torrential downpour, forever captured the pathetic state of Bryce and his men. Then, the sound of sirens grew closer. Under the witness of countless lenses, the arrogant young master of the Blue City Group was led into a police car, his face a picture of utter despair. Watching the police car drive away, Liu Chen finally burst out laughing. This grand drama of a son screwing over his father, directed by him personally, had been a spectacular success. That night, a black Volkswagen sedan sat inconspicuously by the road beneath the 15th Women's Dormitory building at Jining University. Before long, Summer Xia, dressed in a blue rippling short skirt, emerged from the building like an ethereal fairy. Her stunning beauty and slender figure instantly became the focus of all eyes. However, to the heartbreak of countless single guys watching, this little fairy opened the back door of that shabby Volkswagen, got in, and shared a deep embrace with the man inside. For a moment, the air was filled with howls of despair, as countless people lamented that their youth was over. Few recognized the car as a Volkswagen Phaeton, a vehicle worth nearly $3 million. Inside the car, the luxurious interior shut out the outside world. Summer Xia curled up in Liu Chen's arms, her face full of affection and love. Leo, why does this Volkswagen feel different? She asked, curiously stroking the soft leather seat. Liu Chen tapped her nose gently and said softly, no matter what car it is, you don't need to be surprised, because you deserve even better. He stroked her smooth, long hair, feeling the girl's complete trust in him, but couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In this life, everyone can trust me, for I will not fail those who trust me. In this life, I will trust no one, for I must not repeat the mistakes of the past. At Summer Xia's coquettish request, Liu Chen agreed to let her treat him to dinner. When he asked about her future plans, Summer Xia actually said she wanted to become a professional gamer. This naive idea, however, ignited a new business blueprint in Liu Chen's mind. He immediately took out his phone and sent a text to Sophia Su, instructing her to start forming an investment department, with its sights set on the huge potential of the domestic live-streaming platforms. What he wanted was not just wealth, but the absolute capital to influence the entire industry. The car stopped in front of Jide Plaza. Just as Liu Chen and Summer Xia got out, they ran into a couple. It was Mark Xing, and beside him, the gaudily dressed Scarlett Zhao. Old enemies meeting again. The moment Scarlett saw Liu Chen, she seethed with anger. Jerry Ji, who had taken her first time but hadn't even given her 3,000 yuan, was here, completely unharmed. Her sharp, sarcastic words flew out. Humph, renting a car to trick little girls again? And this time it's a shabby Volkswagen. You're really going downhill. Before Liu Chun could speak, Summer Xia, like an angered kitten, stood in front of him. Who are you calling a liar? You're the liar. Your whole family are liars. After a verbal spat, Liu Chun led the still pouting Summer Xia into the mall, heading straight for the Louis Vuitton store. There was a long line at the entrance. As Summer Xia was whispering about how expensive it was, and the two were flirting, Scarlett dragged the impatient Mark Xing to stand in line right behind them. Oomph. Renting a car to pick up girls, and you dare to look at luxury goods? Wasting time, taking up space. Scarlett's cold sarcasm rang out again. Liu Chun just smiled faintly. To me, this isn't a luxury item. It's a daily necessity. In the midst of this awkward standoff, a cheerful voice called out, Damn, brother, why are you waiting in line? It was Tony Tang. Seeing Liu Chun, he didn't hesitate, pulling out a solid black card and stuffing it into his hand. Come on, follow me, why wait in line? This is our family's universal black card for the mall. Priority access to any store, you don't even need to bring money. Under Scarlett Zhao's stunned and disbelieving gaze, Liu Chun took Summer Xia's hand, followed Tony Tang, and calmly entered the store through the VIP entrance. The store manager personally received them with great enthusiasm. Summer Xia carefully picked out the cheapest small wallet in the entire store. But Liu Chun smiled at the manager and said, All right, wrap this one up. Also, bring me one of each of your classic, new this year, and limited edition handbags, shoulder bags, and backpacks. As soon as he said this, the entire store fell into a dead silence. All the customers and staff stood frozen, looking at him in disbelief. Scarlett Zhao, who had just entered the store, felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She watched as the manager and staff busily wrapped up bags whose prices she didn't even dare to look at, listened as the POS machine printed out a long receipt, and finally, when the manager respectfully announced, the total is 427,000 yuan, Scarlett's world completely collapsed. She watched Liu Chun calmly swipe his card and sign, then looked at Mark Xing beside her, who had to make excuses just to buy a 30,000 yuan bag. An unprecedented sense of humiliation and absurdity instantly engulfed her. Outside the Louis Vuitton store, the summer sun was a bit glaring. Scarlett Zhao walked out of the mall in a daze. Everything that had just happened inside felt like a surreal nightmare, shattering all her vanity and calculations to pieces. Unwilling to give up, she took out her phone, her fingertips trembling as she sent a text to the number saved as Jerry G. Are you free? I'd like to treat you to a meal. The phone vibrated. Liu Chun glanced at it, a mocking curve on his lips, and replied with 3 words, I have no money. It's okay, my treat. You don't have to spend anything. The reply came almost instantly, full of urgency. Liu Chun put his phone away and ignored it. Beside him, Summer Xia was still grumbling about the earlier conflict. That woman is so annoying. Whatever I like, she has to compete for it. All right, don't think about her. Let's go to the arcade. Liu Chun took her hand and led her to the other end of the mall. Upon entering the arcade, the deafening music and flashing neon lights instantly enveloped them. Here, Summer Xia was like a fish back in water, instantly unleashing her true nature. She slung all her newly bought designer bags around Liu Chun's neck and then, like a whirlwind, darted between the various game machines. Whether it was fighting games, racing, or basketball, she displayed astonishing talent. In less than 10 minutes, she had made 6 little kids who challenged her cry with her overwhelming victories. Liu Chun could only follow behind, helplessly apologizing to the parents while stuffing handfuls of game tokens into the hands of the sobbing children. Finally, he forcibly placed the little devil, who was having the time of her life, on the dance machine. As the music started, Summer Xia's body moved with the rhythm. Her graceful dancing, paired with her stunning face, quickly attracted a crowd 3 layers deep. Among the onlookers were even a few of the little boys she had just made cry, now tugging at their father's shirts, saying in their childish voices, Daddy, I want to marry this big sister when I grow up. Nearly an hour later, Liu Chun finally managed to drag the reluctant Summer Xia out of the arcade. After dinner and a movie, they returned to the 5-star hotel suite Liu Chun had booked. On the soft, large bed, Liu Chun held the warm, fragrant girl in his arms, feeling her even breathing, a sense of peace in his heart. Summer, he asked softly, aren't you curious about me? About my money, whether it's legal? Summer Xia snuggled closer in his arms, shook her head, her voice tinged with a lazy sweetness. Not curious. I just like it like this, liking you purely, without any complications. Even if you get arrested, I'll always remember you. These words, so pure and unadulterated, were like a soft feather, gently stroking Liu Chun's heartstrings, yet also touching the cold scar deep within him. He smiled, holding the girl tighter, while silently repeating his vow of rebirth in his mind. In this life, everyone can trust me, for I will not fail those who trust me. In this life, I will trust no one, for I must not repeat the mistakes of the past. As the night deepened, the candles flickered. In the warm and gentle breeze, feelings grew rapidly, becoming uncontrollable. At midnight, Liu Chun took a shower, walked to the living room, and lit a cigarette. In the swirling smoke, he opened his phone. The news about Blue City Group's young master, Bryce Bai, being detained was still trending online. What he didn't know was that at this moment, in the headquarters of Blue City Group, Brandon Bai was roaring at his trusted subordinate. Useless. I just warned him not to cause trouble, and he gets himself sent to jail. Creating negative news at this critical juncture will seriously affect our stock price. Brandon Bai's anger was the perfect tailwind for Liu Chun. The next day, Blue City Group's stock opened at its limit down. This backstab from his own son created a golden opportunity for Liu Chun's capital hunt. In the trading room of Tungshao Capital, the atmosphere was tense but orderly. Liu Chun's instructions were clear and decisive. The two teams, already on standby, turned billions in capital into a flood, frantically devouring the shares being dumped on the market out of panic. In just one morning, over 5 billion in funds had been deployed. At 2 in the afternoon, just as everyone thought the stock would remain at its limit down until the close, Blue City Group's stock price suddenly made a move, beginning a rapid ascent. A series of positive news followed: the successful acquisition of a key plot of land in the development zone, and the government's plan to build a major school in the area. The stock price shot up from its limit down to its limit up in an instant. And Liu Chun, having completed all his moves at the lowest point, simply sat back and watched the storm unfold. This textbook capital ambush made all the new employees in the trading room look at him with something akin to worship. Come on, let's go downstairs and play badminton. To everyone's astonishment, Liu Chun stood up with a smile, as if the battle involving billions of dollars had been nothing more than a light appetizer before a meal. For the next few days, with all his capital tied up, Liu Chun had a rare return to campus life. He declined Sophia Su's request regarding company matters, his reason being, "I have classes to attend. I'm still a student." However, this peace was soon broken. On a hot afternoon, as he was idly wandering through the commercial street, he was dragged by his roommate, Kevin Liu, to see the long line for tickets to a celebrity concert. He was uninterested, even turning down an insider ticket offered by Chloe Tan, but he couldn't escape it in the end. "Hello? Tony." On the other end of the line was Tony Tang's hearty laughter and the deafening roar of an engine. "Hey, brother, are you free tonight? That concert at your school, a few of us are going to support a friend. It's a good chance for us to meet up and discuss the charity auction this weekend." After hanging up, Liu Chun was speechless. The enemy was already at the gates. As the host, he had nowhere to run. On the other end of the line, Tony Tang's hearty laughter mixed with the deafening roar of an engine, as if it would tear Liu Chun's eardrums apart. "No worries, we'll take a spin first. See you at the stadium entrance later." After hanging up, Liu Chun shook his head helplessly. These guys really knew how to stir up trouble. A short while later, that air-tearing roar grew closer. 7 or 8 supercars of various designs, like a pack of colorful steel beasts, shattered the tranquility of the campus night. The iridescent bodies of the cars cast long, phantom-like shadows under the streetlights. Wherever they went, all eyes were drawn to them, and sounds of amazement and whistles filled the air. Tony Tang, in the lead car, savored the feeling of being the center of attention. Just as he was about to lead the convoy for another lap, a campus patrol car with flashing lights mercilessly blocked their path. Liu Chun happened to be passing by and saw the comical scene from a distance. The same young masters who had been so arrogant moments before were now standing in a neat line like naughty students, heads bowed, listening to a middle-aged security guard's spit-flying lecture. Their current pathetic state was a stark contrast to their earlier swagger. "Hey, Liu Chun, over here." Tony Tang, with his sharp eyes, spotted the gloating Liu Chun and quickly called for help. But all it got him was a sterner look from the security guard and a lecture that lasted over 10 minutes. After finally getting away, Tony Tang looked exasperated. "Damn, this isn't how I imagined it." "A school is a place for learning, brother," Liu Chun said, holding back his laughter. "You guys should park your cars and then come over. I'll wait for you at the entrance." The entrance to the stadium was bustling with people. Liu Chun stood there, bored, only to run into Kevin Liu and Jerry's group of rascals again. "Damn, showing off, aren't you? Didn't you say you weren't coming?" Kevin Liu punched him on the arm. "Friends from out of town, just showing them around," Liu Chun explained casually. "Yeah, right, we believe you. You're waiting to give Chloe Tan flowers after the performance, right?" The group exchanged suggestive glances, and at Wu Ling's urging, they laughed and went inside. Not far away, Chloe Tan's best friend, Lucy Liu, also spotted him and immediately said to the people around her in a disdainful tone, "Look, isn't that Liu Chun? Chloe offered him a ticket earlier, and he refused. Now he can't get in and is just waiting at the entrance. How embarrassing. I hate people like him, who'd rather suffer than lose face." Chloe looked at the lonely figure standing at the entrance, her feelings a complicated mix. Before she could say anything, Lucy was already gearing up to go over and humiliate him. Just as Lucy had her lines ready and was striding forward to open fire, Tony Tang, Barry Xiong, and 7 or 8 other fashionably dressed young men came from the other side. slinging their arms around Liu Chen's shoulders, laughing and talking as they headed towards the nearby VIP entrance. The words Lucy had prepared got stuck in her throat like a fishbone. She couldn't get them out or swallow them down, her face turning beet red. Chloe and the others behind her were all stunned, their faces full of disbelief. Inside the VIP entrance, the noise from outside was shut out. The group took their seats in the prime central location in the front row, with a perfect view of the entire stage. The bodyguards had already taken their positions, discreetly scattered around, forming an invisible security net. Tony, what was that about an auction on the phone? Liu Chen asked. Tony Tang lowered his voice and began to explain the annual, and very deep, Jinning charity auction. It was not only a stage for businesses to showcase their strength, but also a social event for the rich kids to expand their networks and complete family tasks. As they were talking, a cold presence came from the side. Isian had appeared silently at some point. Her face was like frost as she spat out 4 words at Barry Xiong. You get out. Barry didn't dare to even squeak, immediately getting up to give her his seat. Everyone in their circle knew that no one could afford to provoke this she-devil. Heh, Sister Ice, hello there. Liu Chen greeted her a bit awkwardly. Isian sat down next to him, and the air around them seemed to drop a few degrees. What? You don't want to sit next to me? She glanced at him sideways, then changed the subject. That piece of land I gave you, do you like it? I like the land very much. Liu Chen immediately became alert. But it wouldn't be right for you to go back on your word, would it, Sister Ice? Who said I'm going back on my word? A curve appeared on Isian's lips. I was asking, how did you know they would plant a major school there? That piece of land is now worth 1.2 billion. This number made Barry and the others beside them gasp. But Liu Chen looked innocent. Big sister, you're the one who forced the land on me. How would I know? I wanted the cash. All right, enough nonsense. I came today to discuss a partnership. Isian took out a document. You provide the land, we handle the development. After the project is completed, you get 65% of the shares, we get 35. How about it? Liu Chen had little interest in such time-consuming real estate development, so a partnership was the best option. He briefly looked through the document and nodded. All right, we'll do as you say. This decision instantly delighted Barry and the others. The business talk finished, and the concert officially began. The famous pop star Wei Chung took the stage, triggering a tsunami of cheers. Liu Chen was humming along when he unintentionally saw Chloe Tan in the orchestra on the side of the stage, looking a bit distracted as she stared in his direction. Suddenly, her hand slipped, and a jarringly wrong note rang out. Wei Chung, under the guise of turning around, shot a harsh glare at the orchestra. The hour-long concert was as tasteless as wax for the rich kids. As the concert ended, Liu Chen and the others were about to leave early through the VIP exit when they heard Wei Cheng's angry roar from backstage. One particularly insulting phrase cut through the noise clearly. Are all you students from Jinning University trash? Liu Chen's brow furrowed instantly. Mark Zhang immediately understood. I'll take care of him. You guys wait for me at the entrance. Backstage, Wei Cheng was yelling at a group of terrified student musicians, particularly targeting Chloe Tan, his words filled with threats, implying that if she didn't have the sense to come to his hotel room for a chat, he would make sure she failed her major course. Just as Chloe was at a loss, Mark Zhang strolled in with his bodyguards, slung an arm around Wei Cheng's shoulder, and said with a grin, Come on, brother, you've offended someone you can't afford to with that mouth of yours. Let's have a good talk. 10 minutes later, Mark Zhang came out looking refreshed, while Wei Cheng was holding his face. He skipped the thank you dinner and scurried into his car and fled. As Liu Chen and his friends were meeting at the entrance, laughing and talking, a figure rushed out of the passage, bumped straight into Liu Chen, and then stomped her foot, yelling, Are you blind? Get out of the way. Liu Chen looked closely and saw that it was the host from the stage, Tina Zhang. Before he could react, Tina had already left him with, If I don't catch up to Wei Cheng, I'm not done with you, and rushed off. Isian watched this scene, a strange light flickering in her eyes. She smiled at Liu Chen and said, Remember this girl. In a few days, I'll give you a big gift. Back in the dorm, it was a rare occasion for all 3 of them to be there. Kevin Liu's loud voice immediately boomed. Leo, where the hell have you been? I looked all over the stadium for you. Couldn't find you anywhere. I was sitting in the front row, Liu Chen replied casually. Damn, I looked for nothing. Kevin automatically ignored the second half of the sentence. Then it hit him, and he exclaimed, What? You were in the front row? He then put on a bragging expression. Oh, no wonder. I didn't see you while I was singing on stage. Must be because you were right under the lights. Liu Chen couldn't be bothered to argue with him. When Jerry suggested watching a movie, he just tossed him a cigarette, climbed onto his bunk, and prepared to enjoy the rare peace and quiet. He needed to cherish this body and enjoy the vast world that was about to unfold. The next day, Liu Chen's life returned to its familiar rhythm. A morning run, breakfast with Summer Xia, and then classes. As he had predicted, Blue City Group stock was firmly locked at its limit up, which meant that for the next few days, he would be making hundreds of millions in profit without doing anything. The morning classes passed in a blur of jokes and banter. Just as class ended, Liu Chen saw Chloe Tan waiting prettily at the classroom door. Amid the suggestive teasing of the entire class, Liu Chen walked out. "Can I treat you to lunch?" Chloe's voice was soft, with a hint of probing. "All right, let's go." Liu Chen didn't refuse. In a Western restaurant on the commercial street, Chloe tried to subtly ask about last night's events. Liu Chen just answered nonchalantly that some bosses he met during a summer job had come to visit the school, and he was just keeping them company. This answer quickly extinguished the flicker of light that had just appeared in Chloe's eyes. Just then, Kevin Liu's friend appeared out of nowhere, pointing his finger at Liu Chen's nose and questioning him aggressively. Liu Chen calmly wiped his mouth and gave a look to Wildcat, who was standing at a distance. The next second, the friend was escorted out by Wildcat in a way that was impossible to resist. When Chloe ran out after them, she only saw a bruised and battered young man, and heard his venomous threat. "Don't you worry, he won't pass a single one of his general education courses." In comparison, the bosses he met at a summer job, in Chloe's mind, were instantly overshadowed by the campus power represented by Kevin's friend. When she returned to the restaurant, fuming, Liu Chen had already finished his meal and was picking his teeth. He said to her, "I'm done eating. You can go pay the bill. Didn't you say you were treating me?" Chloe's face instantly flushed red. She stormed to the counter, paid the bill without a word, and left without looking back. Liu Chen watched her go, his heart unmoved. In this life, he had already seen through her true nature. In the evening, a barbecue, hosted by Liu Chen, who had won at Mahjong, kicked off at a small restaurant by the community entrance. After a few rounds of drinks, the conversation deepened. Just as Kevin was teasing Sam Shun and Wu Ling about their future, a charming figure suddenly bounced in through the entrance, wrapping her arms around Liu Chen's neck. It was the campus belle, Yolanda Yu. "Hi, everyone," she greeted them warmly, then turned to Liu Chen and said coquettishly, "Are you staying tonight?" Kevin, Sam, and Wu Ling were instantly sobered up, staring wide-eyed at the dramatic scene unfolding before them. Amid their friends' suggestive teasing and jokes about needing a kidney boost, Liu Chen just smiled and acquiesced. He knew what Yolanda wanted, and he happened to be able to give it to her. The next day, it was late in the morning when Liu Chen woke up in the bed at Scholar's Grace Residences. He left 20,000 in cash on Yolanda's pillow with a text message that read, "Shopping money," and then quietly left to continue his regular campus life. Just as school let out for lunch, Tony Tang's call came through. "Hey, brother, let's go to the auction. Isn't it this weekend? Today's only Thursday. Hey, it's a 3-day event, Friday to Sunday. The auction is on Saturday. Today and Sunday are warm-up cocktail parties. The venue is at Atlantic Capital Group's private estate. You don't usually get a chance to go in there. It's all young people, so bring a supercar to fit in." A private estate owned by the richest man in Jining? Liu Chen's interest was immediately piqued. He said goodbye to Summer Xia, returned to the company, and after a moment of hesitation between the Ferrari and the Lamborghini, he chose the latter. At the Zijin Manor in the eastern suburbs, the usual tranquility was replaced by today's bustle. The massive parking lot was filled with luxury cars, and supercars of all colors competed for attention, like a top-tier auto expo. Tony Tang and the others were already waiting at the entrance. The Zijin Manor isn't open year-round, only once a year, so how could we miss it? Tony Tang explained with a smile. Liu Chen looked around. The Gothic-style buildings were scattered tastefully, vast, manicured lawns rolled up and down, and there was a golf course, a stable, and an archery range. The level of luxury was beyond imagination. After some discussion, Liu Chen, along with Mark Zhang, who also enjoyed archery, went to the archery range. There weren't many people there. As an experienced archer, Mark patiently explained the basics to Liu Chen. Liu was a beginner, and although he could only draw a 30-pound bow, he was having a great time. As he was concentrating on drawing his bow, a voice, incredibly seductive, came from behind. Well, if it isn't young Master Chen. What an honor to see you again." Liu Chen turned around and saw Elaine Yan, swaying her stunning S-shaped figure as she walked towards him. She seemed to have completely forgotten the unpleasantness at Jining Pharmaceutical. She came straight to Liu Chen's side, and in an extremely suggestive posture, pressed against his body, her voice so seductive it could make a man's bones melt. "Come, draw your bow. Sister will teach you how to shoot. I guarantee you'll hit the bullseye on the first try." In the afternoon at Zijin Manor, sunlight filtered through sparse clouds, casting dappled shadows on the emerald green lawn. The air was filled with the fresh scent of grass and earth. At the archery range, Liu Chen had just gotten the hang of it, the bowstring trembling slightly at his fingertips, the arrow poised and ready. However, a rich fragrance accompanied by a soft body, quietly pressing against him from behind, instantly shattered his concentration. "Come, draw your bow. Sister will teach you how to shoot. I guarantee you'll hit the bullseye on the first try." Elaine Yan's voice was like a hook, each word whispered in his ear, the warm breath raising goosebumps on his skin. Her hand covered his, seemingly correcting his posture, but in reality, it was full of teasing. Liu Chun subtly shifted to the side, breaking away from the soft touch, and said calmly, "No, thank you. Leo, don't be so formal with me." Elaine's beautiful eyes sparkled with charm. "I'm much better than that dead-faced Icyan, right?" She pressed closer again, her voice even lower. "How about I divorce my husband and marry you? My shares in Atlantic Capital Group are no less than hers. And I am very skilled." Mark Zhang, who was standing nearby, watched in astonishment. He finally understood why Liu Chun was never short of women. This damn charm was lethal to both men and women. "No need." Liu Chen's tone was devoid of any emotion. "I'm not interested in ruining someone else's marriage." He put down the bow and arrow and turned to leave, leaving Elaine to watch his retreating back, her eyes narrowing slightly, glinting with a calculated light. In the six-story building specially for guests in the manor, every room was a lavish suite. Liu Chun returned to his room and stood before the huge floor-to-ceiling window, just in time to see Elaine Yin drawing her bow downstairs. Her exaggerated S-curve was on full display in her tight-fitting clothes. He only glanced at her once before looking away. As good as that body was, it still couldn't compare to Serena Shi's. Knock, knock, knock. A knock on the door. Roy Lei opened it, and to his surprise, Icyan was standing outside. "Little brother, did you miss me?" she said with a charming smile, a completely different person from her usual Ice Queen persona. Liu Chun motioned for Roy and the others to step outside and said helplessly, "Sister Ice, you're an Ice Queen. Please mind your image." "That's just for outsiders." Icyan sauntered into the room, her gaze also falling on Elaine Yin outside the window. "You're not an outsider." She looked at the alluring figure and said coldly, "This bitch has been fighting with me for control of the family's subsidiary companies. My father is getting old and senile. He actually let her and her mother control 5 of the group's listed subsidiaries, while I only have 3. Liu Chun remained silent. He didn't want to get involved in this bottomless pit of a wealthy family's drama. Icyan's tone suddenly changed, taking on a pleading note as she looked at him pitifully. "Little brother Leo, please come and help me. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." Same old story. Liu Chun rejected her outright. "I can't help you, and I don't want to get involved in your fights." The hope on Icyan's face instantly vanished, replaced by her usual calm and cold demeanor. Her gaze slowly moved down, her tone full of provocation. "Little brother, you're quite composed, aren't you? It makes me wonder if your talk about having many women is just a cover for a certain shortcoming." This piercing remark made Liu Chen's eyes turn cold. He didn't get angry, but calmly reminded her, "Don't forget, we're still partners in a real estate development project." Icyan was sharp as a tack and immediately understood the warning in his words. She laughed charmingly, breaking the tense atmosphere. "Don't worry, I remember. I hope you have a good time at Zijin Manor." With that, she swayed her captivating figure and left the room. In the evening, a grand outdoor banquet was held on the manor's lawn. Under the dazzling lights, the long dining tables were laden with an array of top-tier ingredients. Mountains of king crabs, a huge sunflower made of Australian lobsters, fragrant matsutake mushrooms, and glistening bluefin tuna. The air was filled with the aroma of food and the smell of money. Liu Chun was teasing Mark Zhang with Tony Tang and the others when his steps suddenly came to a halt. Not far from the dining table stood a familiar figure. It was the female host who had been rude to him at the stadium entrance, Tina Zhang. "I haven't even gone looking for you, and here we are again," Liu Chun said with a smile as he walked up to her. "We are quite fated, aren't we?" Tina Zhang looked at Liu Chun, who was laughing and talking with a group of top-tier rich kids, and her mind went blank. She couldn't connect the poised man before her with the ordinary student she thought he was. "You? Aren't you a student?" Tony Tang sneered from the side. "When you bumped into him and cursed at him at the stadium entrance that day, did you ever think you'd run into a classmate who could make it so you'd never get another hosting job in Jinning with a single word?" Tina Zhang's face instantly turned deathly pale. She finally realized what kind of person she had offended. Just as she was at a loss for words, unable to even form a complete sentence, Ice Yen, like a queen, slowly walked over from the side. "Oh, the weirdo who offended Liu Chun outside the stadium." She looked Tina up and down, then coldly instructed her assistant, "Get their agency's person in charge over here immediately." In less than 5 minutes, a sweating, chubby man came running, out of breath. The agency boss, who usually held sway in the modeling circle, was now like a naughty schoolboy in front of Ice Yen, bowing and scraping, not even daring to breathe too loudly. This scene completely shattered Tina Zhang's last shred of hope. "I'm not necessarily trying to make things difficult for you." Under the absolute pressure of power, Liu Chen's voice sounded particularly calm. "Go back to school, find an opportunity to publicly apologize and make a self-criticism. As long as I'm satisfied, we'll consider this matter over." Tina Zhang nodded repeatedly, as if granted a pardon. However, the matter was not over yet. Ice Yin waved the chubby man away but kept Tina Zhang, leading her to a separate villa deep within the manor. In the brightly lit Gothic-style building, Ice Yin leaned lazily on the sofa, her 2 long, slender legs elegantly crossed. She quietly watched the girl, who was trembling slightly with fear, for a long time before finally speaking slowly. Did you feel helpless today? Do you want to make yourself valuable, to have a backer, to have support? A flame of hope instantly ignited in Tina Zhang's eyes, and she nodded repeatedly without hesitation. Very good. A cold curve appeared on Xian's lips. She leaned forward slightly, staring into Tina Zhang's eyes, and said, word by word, tonight, you will take care of Liu Chun. If you succeed, you will have value. Late at night, Zijin Manor was immersed in tranquility. The noisy party on the lawn had long since ended, leaving only the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. In Liu Chen's room, the lights were soft. He was just about to take a shower when a gentle, restrained knock on the door suddenly broke the silence. Royle looked at Liu Chun questioningly. After getting a nod, he walked over and pulled the heavy door open a crack. Outside stood a woman so stunning that even he was taken aback. The woman before him was wearing a well-tailored silver evening gown that outlined her already tall figure like a mermaid under the moonlight. Her exquisite makeup perfectly accentuated the best features of her face. The professional and proud demeanor of a host from the daytime was now replaced by a complex and deliberately crafted air of dignity and sexiness. Her eyes were no longer haughty as they had been during the day, but now held a hint of shyness, nervousness, and a barely perceptible desire. You're Tina Zhang? Liu Chen asked, a little uncertain. The change was too drastic. Yes, she nodded, her swan-like, slender neck creating a graceful arc under the light. Is there something you need? Yes. Her gaze quickly swept over the tower-like figures of Roy and the others, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Liu Chen looked at her alluring and submissive appearance, then recalled Xian's meaningful smile from earlier in the day, and instantly understood. He waved his hand. Roy, you guys can go rest in the next room for now. Roy's sharp eyes scrutinized Tina Zhang for a moment before he nodded slightly and led his men out. The moment the door closed, the atmosphere in the room became instantly ambiguous and delicate. Tina Zhang stood there awkwardly. The man sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, though casually seated, exuded an inexplicable pressure. Xian sent you, didn't she? Liu Chun broke the silence. Tina's body trembled, and she looked at him in surprise. Liu Chen smiled. Don't be nervous. This outfit of yours must have cost over 100,000. The only person with that kind of money and motive that I can think of is her. Tell me, what did she send you here to do? No, nothing. She just told me to. Tina started to say, but her cheeks were already flushed, and she couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence. All right, Liu Chen's smile was playful. Then you can just do as she said. He had expected to sit back and enjoy a well-choreographed performance, but he didn't expect that this seemingly devastating beauty, after shedding all her pretenses, would be a complete novice who didn't even know where to put her hands. Liu Chen sighed and stood up. He didn't like being passive. Early the next morning, Liu Chen woke up from a soft dream. He freed himself from Tina Zhang's warm, slender arms, changed into his sportswear, and went out alone. The manor was exceptionally quiet in the morning, the air so fresh it carried a hint of earthy fragrance. He ran rhythmically along the golf course path, with Royle following him like a shadow. Morning, a cool voice said beside him. Xian, also in tight-fitting sportswear that showed off her perfect figure, was jogging alongside him. Did you have a good time last night? She asked with a suggestive smile. Liu Chun gradually slowed to a stop, turned to look at her, his gaze calm and sharp. Tell me, what is your real purpose after going through all this trouble? Xian let out a bell-like laugh. If I had a purpose, would I make it so obvious? Just enjoy your beauty. I just wanted to prove one thing to you. She stopped and looked into Liu Chen's eyes seriously. As long as you marry me, I will absolutely not interfere with your private life. And, if you like, I can find you more of Tina Zhang's type. This shocking statement made even Liu Chen feel a sense of absurdity. He finally understood that this woman's marriage was destined to be a transaction. My marriage, instead of finding some useless rich kid who will mess around outside after marriage, I'd rather pick someone I find pleasing to the eye and capable. Xian's tone was devoid of any emotion. Then, I'll find him some women that I approve of, so that everything is under my control. Liu Chen looked at her. This most beautiful rose in Jining City, beautiful as she was covered in sharp thorns. He shook his head. The fact that I have value to you, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. Sorry, Sister Ice, I'm going to continue my run. With that, he started running again, not looking back as he disappeared along the path. Xian stood there, watching his retreating back, and for the first time, a sense of indescribable frustration rose from the bottom of her heart. The unhappy queen needed to vent. Coincidentally, Tony Tang, who was rarely up this early, was cheerfully waving in her direction. Morning, Sister Ice. Before he could finish, he saw Xian's frosty face. You. Xian pointed at him coldly. Why did you step onto the lawn with your left foot first? The smile on Tony Tang's face instantly froze, and he inwardly wailed. Damn it. I walked right into the line of fire again. A moment later, The tranquility of Zijin Manor was shattered by a series of piercing screams. Liu Chun ignored the drama behind him. After working out for over an hour, he returned to his room. By the time he had washed up, Tina Zhang was just waking up. He glanced at the lazy and seductive body on the bed, picked up his phone, and dialed Ice Yin directly. The call was answered quickly, her voice tinged with an irrepressible joy. Hello? Liu Chun, what's up? Have you figured it out? Figured what out? Liu Chun's tone was lazy and flirtatious. The person you sent over last night. We had a bit too much fun, and her clothes are all torn. Send a new set over. With that, he hung up before she could reply. On the other end of the line, Ice Yin held the phone, stunned for a full 10 seconds, her pretty face flushing red as various images uncontrollably flashed through her mind. She gritted her teeth, but finally sighed and gave an order to her most trusted bodyguard, Zhang Yuan. There was nothing she could do. She was the one who had sent the person in. She didn't want to lose all her progress in this game. In the early morning at Zijin Manor, sunlight streamed through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, casting dappled shadows on the carpet. Liu Chun woke up from the soft, large bed. Beside him, Tina Zhang was still asleep, her brow slightly furrowed, as if she were not sleeping soundly. Her old wounds had not yet healed, and now there were new ones. She was clearly unable to host the auction this afternoon. Liu Chun was not concerned in the slightest. The Yin family would naturally find a replacement. In the afternoon, the Jinning charity auction officially began. Liu Chun, along with Roy Lei and his men, leisurely walked to the entrance of the magnificent banquet hall, only to see a comical scene. Tony Tang was surrounded by a group of rich kids, holding his bruised and swollen face, vividly complaining to everyone. I don't even know why. They just came at me with a flurry of punches and kicks. I don't know which bastard caused the trouble, but I'm the one who took the beating. Ahem. Tony, are you okay? Liu Chun went up to greet him. Tony winced in pain. I'm fine. Just stay away from that woman. From Sister Ice in the future. She hits harder than before. As everyone was holding back their laughter, sympathetically recalling their own fears of being dominated by the Queen Yin, an arrogant voice rudely interrupted. Huh? Got your ass kicked again? Serves you right. Everyone turned to see Bryce Bai. He had obviously been bailed out by his family, and was now staring at Liu Chun with a defiant look, his eyes full of venom. Kid, I'll remember you. You just wait. Liu Chun acted as if he hadn't heard, not even sparing him a glance. He just smiled at Tony Tang and the others. It's about to start, right? Shall we go in? The dogs barking outside are too annoying. Yes, let's go in, haha. The group immediately understood and surrounded Liu Chun, leaving Bryce Bai standing there alone. Bryce's face instantly turned the color of a pig's liver, the veins on his temples throbbing. Liu Chun didn't even give him a second thought. A dog that only barks doesn't bite. The one to be truly wary of was Brandon Bai, who had remained unseen and silent throughout. But so what? With billions of his company's stock in his hands, he held the lifeblood of that old fox. Compared to the real battle behind the scenes, Bryce Bai, who was completely oblivious to it all, was like a clown drifting on a hearse and dancing on a grave, comical and pathetic. Inside the banquet hall, the scene was one of glamour and elegance. A campus host, slightly less impressive than Tina Zhang, took the stage, her face beaming with an undisguised joy, obviously celebrating her good fortune. After a bland opening speech, the lights in the hall dimmed, and a short video from the Highlands appeared on the huge screen. The camera first swept over magnificent snow-capped mountains and azure lakes, finally settling on a pair of eyes so clear they were devoid of any impurities. When the camera zoomed out, and a young girl in splendid ethnic costume appeared, the breathing in the entire banquet hall became heavier. It was a beauty not of this world, pure and sacred, enough to make all the rich kids present, who were used to seeing ordinary beauties, lose their composure. Damn, where did they find such a goddess? Mark Zhang murmured to himself. Tony Tang, holding his face, said indistinctly, if they didn't go all out, would you be willing to spend your money so easily? Before he finished speaking, he had already raised his paddle. 1 million. I'll buy her phone number. The hall erupted in laughter, everyone thinking it was just a joke from Tony to liven up the atmosphere. Liu Chun also smiled. He now understood that this so-called charity auction was just a carefully packaged game that used beauty, connections, and face to leverage capital. The first item was a piece of calligraphy by some unknown master. In Liu Chun's opinion, the scribbles on the paper didn't even qualify as writing. 200,000. Mark Zhang raised his paddle listlessly, just to give the Yin family some face. Ha! Bryce Bai's jarring laughter rang out again. A car seller, so unprofitable. You dare to shout so loudly for 200,000. He turned his head and stared at Liu Chun with an extremely insulting gaze. What the fuck are you looking at? Look at your fucking dog face. You look so damn ugly when you smile. The atmosphere in the venue instantly dropped to freezing point. Ice Yin, as the host, watched with interest, showing no intention of stopping it. Just as Tony Tang and Mark Zhang were about to react, Liu Chun stopped them with a calm look. He didn't get angry, didn't roar, just took out his phone and, in front of everyone, dialed Sophia Sue's number. Hello? Find the best legal team in the country. I want to sue someone for defamation. His voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard throughout the quiet hall. Also, we hold more than 5% of Blue City Group shares, right? According to the regulations, it needs to be publicly announced within 3 days. Let's just get it done today as well. The arrogance on Bryce By's face instantly froze. His mind was buzzing, full of questions. Again? Always calling reporters, calling lawyers? What the hell was this guy's game? He had just gotten out of jail and was already traumatized by Leo Chen's unconventional methods. As for the 5% of shares, it had to be a bluff, right? However, looking at Leo Chen's calm eyes, which showed not a ripple of emotion, Bryce By, for the first time, felt a real sense of fear. In the afternoon in the Jining University study room, the air was filled with the scent of ink from the books and the faint smell of sweat from the young people. The cicadas outside the window chirped incessantly, but inside, it was so quiet you could only hear the rustling of pens on paper. Lena Li leaned close to Leo Chen's ear, explaining the key points of the textbook in a voice only they could hear. The warm breath tickled his ear, but Leo Chen's hand was restlessly roaming her thigh, causing her to tremble slightly. You haven't been to many classes this semester. Aren't you afraid of failing? She said reproachfully, trying to endure the ticklish sensation. Don't worry, I've taken care of it. Leo Chen's fingers drew circles on her smooth skin as he answered nonchalantly. Then why are you here studying? Are you here to study, or to? Lena's words trailed off, her cheeks flushing crimson, unable to continue. You don't need to study either. I've arranged it for you too. Leo Chen's words were like the devil's whisper. Lena paused for a moment, then smiled in relief and closed her book. Let's go then. I'm hungry. All right. A wicked smile appeared on Leo Chen's lips. Let's find a place to feed you until you're full. In a cheap hotel on the back street of the university, the air conditioner was working hard to blow out cold air, but it still couldn't dispel the steaming heat in the room. The neon lights outside filtered through the thin curtains, casting ambiguous shadows on their entangled bodies. After what felt like a long time, Lena Li curled up in Leo Chen's arms, muttering weakly, You're terrible. I'm starving. I have no energy left. Are we going to eat or not? The two walked out of the hotel and into the bustling crowd of the food street. Lena Li had been carrying a shopping bag the whole time. Only after Leo Chen's persistent questioning did she shyly take out a pair of the latest Nike running shoes. Hee, I went shopping with a friend yesterday and bought these for you. I heard the cushioning is really good and can protect your knees. Leo Chen looked at the expensive shoes, then at her simple, unbranded dress, and his heart stirred slightly. He knew that most of the 200,000 he had given her had been spent on him. He was about to say something when he saw Kevin Liu's friend pass by. The friend first looked surprised, then a strange, mixed expression of amusement and triumph appeared on his face before he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Leo Chen didn't pay any attention to the clown. He took the bag from Lena Li, and the two of them strolled through the food street, eating and enjoying the rare moment of peace. Back at the dormitory, Leo Chen promised Lena Li that he had already arranged her plane ticket home, so she wouldn't have to endure the long train ride. Back in the dorm, at Jerry's eager urging, Leo Chen cleverly used 100 yuan to have a neighbor's classmate pick up a forgotten dinner. He had just put on the new shoes Lena Li had given him and was trying them on when his phone suddenly vibrated. Seeing the caller ID, Andy in, Leo Chen's eyes instantly sharpened. He walked to the balcony and cautiously answered the call. Boss, something important has come up. Andy's voice was steady and powerful. We've gathered all the evidence of Vance Wong's illegal activities. With what he's done, he's looking at least 10 years in prison. Good. A cold smile appeared on Leo Chen's lips. It is the duty of every citizen to rid society of its pests. Go ahead. Yes, boss. Meanwhile, in a luxurious villa in Jining City, a family dinner was in full swing. Stansher raised his glass, looking at his two right-hand men on either side, Vance Wong and Mark Xing, and a knowing smile appeared on his face. For the past few years, the three of them had worked together, using false advertising to manipulate the market, cheating countless retail investors, and making a fortune. Come, a toast to the upcoming cotton futures. Cheers. The three of them clinked their glasses and drank up. Stansher was happily imagining that after this deal, he would successfully launder his money through a real estate project and then enjoy the rest of his life. Just then, the piercing sound of police sirens grew closer, shattering the tranquility of the villa. The smile on Vance Wong's face instantly froze, his heart sinking. He had done the most wrong, and to him, this sound was like the call of death. The police car stopped right in front of the villa. Several police officers entered, the leader's eyes as sharp as a hawk's, and he asked authoritatively, "Who is Vance Wong?" Vance Wong's heart was pounding. Holding on to the last sliver of hope, he stood up shakily. I am. Then please come with us to assist in the investigation. Seeing that he couldn't stop them, Stansher stood up, walked over to Vance Wong, patted him on the shoulder, and said in a meaningful tone, Vance, it is the duty of every citizen to cooperate with the investigation. Go on, I'll take care of your family for you. Vance Wang's pupils contracted sharply. He understood the blatant threat. He nodded and was taken away without a word. As soon as he left, the originally cheerful atmosphere instantly turned gloomy. Stanshire slammed his fist on the table and roared like a beast. Who was it? Then, as if he remembered something, he took out his phone and dialed the number of Vance Wang's wife, who was 15 years younger than him. Hello, Tanya? This is Stanshire. Come to Riverside International, room 3218. I have something to discuss with you. At the police station, Vance Wang looked at the criminal evidence, which was even clearer than his own memory, and his heart turned to ash. For a moment, he wanted to drag everyone down with him, but then he thought of Stanshire's threat and his 2 young sons, and ultimately chose to remain silent. He didn't know that at the same time he was being interrogated, in a luxurious suite at the Riverside International Hotel, Stanshire was holding his wife, Tanya Tong, in his arms, using wealth and protection as bargaining chips to openly take over all his inheritance. This betrayal came even faster than the verdict. The next day, Leo Chun received the intelligence from Andy. Seeing what Stanshire had done, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He then sent another message. Continue to investigate Stanshire. Also, find a way to let Vance Wang know what's happening outside. Do it legally, just get him a lawyer. After dealing with these dark matters, Leo Chen's life switched back to the bright and sunny campus channel. On the morning track, he pulled along Summer Xia, who would play cute whenever she got tired of running, enjoying the playful antics under the envious gazes of countless single guys. In the cafeteria, Summer Xia peeled eggs for him, while at the next table, Chloe Tan sat with a cold face, refusing the same request from her new boyfriend. When Leo Chen got up, his gaze casually swept past them without a flicker of interest, as if they were complete strangers. This silent indifference stung Chloe's heart sharply. In the evening, on the way back to Summer Xia's dorm, just as they were about to part, this usually shy and reserved girl suddenly stopped, fidgeting with the hem of her clothes, her face blushing, and said in a voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Leo, the break is starting soon, and I won't see you for a long time. Tonight, can I? Leo Chun looked at her eyes, full of anticipation and shyness, and without a moment's hesitation, gave her the answer she most wanted with a single word. Yes. Leo Chen's simple yes was like a stone dropped into a lake, creating ripples of shy and sweet happiness in Summer Xia's eyes. She playfully pecked him on the cheek and then, like a happy butterfly, disappeared behind the dormitory door, leaving him with a laughing and crying. I'm going back to my game. Before the exams, the campus air was thick with a mixture of anxiety and boredom. Everyone was like a wind-up machine, buried in books and practice questions. Even the usually most unreliable Jerry would ceremoniously flip through the public course textbook tucked under his keyboard between games. After a few hours of boredom in the dorm, Leo Chen couldn't stand it anymore. With a single phone call, he pulled Summer Xia, who was in the middle of a heated raid, from the virtual world back to reality. You big pervert, what's the rush? I was in a raid. Summer Xia pouted her cute little lips, half coquettishly, half complaining. What's so fun about a raid? If a raid isn't fun, what is? Are you fun? Yes, you're right. It was the same familiar 5-star hotel, the same luxurious suite with a panoramic view of the city's nightscape. After taking a few satisfactory photos from pretty angles in the room, Summer Xia was pulled into the inner room by Leo Chun. Outside, it was a sunny afternoon in Jining City, the sunlight just right. Inside, it was full of tender affection, blooming in an instant. Passionate wind turned into rain, rain into mist, and the mist lingered. The reluctance to part soon transformed into a lingering and unceasing song of love. When he woke up again, it was already sunset. Leo Chun lifted the still lazy Summer Xia from the bed and, ignoring her protests, carried her straight to the restaurant downstairs. The waiter recommended the Boston lobster that had just been flown in that day. Leo Chun directly ordered the largest one. When the ridiculously large, bright red beast, weighing 7 pounds, was brought to the table, Summer Xia's eyes widened. This one meal, just the lobster alone, cost over 4,000 yuan. Leo Chun ate with great relish, but in the end, he smacked his lips and thought that besides having a bit more meat, it didn't taste much different from regular shrimp. Before they parted, Summer Xia was reluctant to leave. Leo Chun smiled and promised that he would tell her as soon as he got back. After saying goodbye to the girl, he had just returned to his dorm when he received a call from Sam Shun, inviting him to Scholar's Grace Residences for an all-night study session. Leo Chun readily agreed, only to find that the so-called study supplies were actually cases of beer and a refrigerator full of barbecue ingredients. Leo, you just don't get it, do you? Sam Shin proudly announced his theory. A person's memory is at its best when they're slightly drunk. We'll have a few drinks first, then pull an all-nighter. I guarantee we'll remember everything. Of course, the result was a complete disaster. The next morning, Leo Chun was woken up by Kevin Liu's terrified scream. I haven't studied a single word. The exam is in 15 minutes. For people, 2 motorcycles, in a mad dash with sparks flying, barely made it into the classroom at the last second before the bell rang. For the first exam, Leo Chun managed to fill the paper with a combination of guessing and making things up. During the break, he stood downstairs smoking and sent new investment instructions to Sophia Sue. But the second exam was much harder, and he was at a complete loss. Just then, a paper ball silently rolled over from the side. Leo Chun looked up and saw Chloe Tan sitting upright, as if nothing had happened. A little surprised, he opened the note. It contained the answers to the multiple choice and true or false questions. He didn't know what Chloe's intention was, but he didn't have time to think about it, and just copied them down. After the exam, Kevin's friend appeared out of nowhere again, taunting Leo Chun with sarcastic remarks. His roommate, Kevin Liu, immediately exploded, pointing his finger at the guy's nose and cursing. In the chaos, the friend actually pointed at Kevin and asked menacingly, "What's your name?" Kevin stuck out his neck and shouted in an extremely arrogant tone, "I, your grandfather, am none other than Jerry G." Leo Chun, who was listening on the side, almost choked on his own saliva. He knew that Jerry was now stuck with the blame for this one. On the night after the exam, the dorm was unusually quiet. Everyone was exhausted. Leo Chun was boredly watching a movie when his phone suddenly rang. It was Sandra's son. Her voice on the other end was clearly drunk. "Hello? Little brother, come down and have a drink with me." Leo Chun immediately put on his shoes and went downstairs. In the third cafeteria, Sandra's son was sitting alone, holding a single can of beer, but she was already 7 or 8 parts drunk. When she saw Leo Chun, she was like an injured kitten, resting her head weakly on his chest without a word. Leo Chun didn't ask, just held her quietly, letting her show him her vulnerability and helplessness without reservation. After a long time, Sandra finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "Do you know about the girl who fell from Building 15? She was my best friend." Sandra's voice was very soft, but it was like a cold chisel, chipping away at a sealed, bloody past. In their freshman year, they were tricked into a pyramid scheme, and it was her best friend who had fought desperately to get her out. However, during her recovery, her best friend was diagnosed with leukemia. Her family was already poor. Her father sold everything they owned and borrowed money from everywhere, but could only raise a tenth of the treatment cost. That money was her only hope of survival. But a financial advisor convinced her desperate father to invest all the life-saving money into a stock he recommended. Sandra's body began to tremble uncontrollably. In the end, it was all gone. She didn't want to be a burden on her family anymore, so one night, she jumped from the 16th floor. Her father was heartbroken, and not long after, he followed her. "I want to do something for her." Sandra's tears fell hot on Leo Chen's arm. "But I have no way, no connections, so I can only climb up. Maybe the higher I climb, the clearer I can see, and the more likely I can find those scammers." The Jinning Financial Circle. A stock recommendation scam. A cold name slithered out from the deepest part of Leo Chen's memory like a venomous snake. Stan Sure, Sandra's best friend, and himself in his previous life, had both fallen victim to his invisible, dark hand. If his calculations were correct, then Mark Xing was just a dog he kept, and Stan Sure was the real crocodile, hidden behind the scenes, who had devoured countless families.